The most popular girl in school was caught cheating, had a mental breakdown, and came to me for counseling. I spent the whole day talking her through it. She begged me to keep her secret, and I agreed, but the very next day, she went up to the rooftop of the academic building, ready to jump. After she was rescued, the school launched a blame game that went all the way up the chain, and in the end, the buck stopped with me, the school counselor. When you discovered a student was suicidal, why didn't you report it to the school immediately? I asked the campus belle to explain the confidentiality issue, but she just looked utterly broken and innocent. When did I ever ask you, teacher, to keep a secret from me? If you, teacher, had reported my situation to the counselor and my parents back then, I might have been able to see things differently. In an instant, everyone was accusing me of negligence for nearly getting a student killed. Even my fiancé called me heartless. My reputation was ruined. In utter despair, I jumped from the school building. Only after I died did I learn the truth. The campus belle never intended to die. She was just using the suicide threat to cover up her exam cheating scandal. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. Back to the day the campus belle came to me for counseling. She pleaded with me, teacher, can you keep it a secret that I'm thinking about jumping? 1. Teacher, I was caught cheating on the final by someone in the same exam hall, said Mabel, the campus beauty queen, sitting across from me with a look of remorse. Now my grade for that course has been voided. I've lost my chance for guaranteed graduate admission, and everyone from that exam will be talking behind my back. What should I do? I don't want to live anymore. Our school's main building is 20 stories, right? Do you think if I jumped, it would end the pain? Any normal counselor would have hit the panic button the moment a student said something like that, immediately trying to talk them down with gentle, reassuring words. Yet there I was, a certified top-tier psychological consultant, just watching her coldly without uttering a single word of comfort. Mabel managed to squeeze out a few tears. Seeing my continued silence, she grew puzzled and asked, teacher, why aren't you saying anything? All my classmates say you're the best counselor at Jing University. That's why I came to you to pour my heart out. Did you just say you want to jump off a building? The counseling office happened to be directly opposite the 20-story teaching building Mabel had mentioned. Do you know what would happen if you fell from that building over there? You'd end up like a squashed meat patty. I clapped my hands together hard, bones shattered, flesh pulped, your face crushed into a grotesque shape by the force of gravity. I leaned in slightly, bringing my face close to Mabel's, and stared at her with a menacing gaze. Blood will cover your mouth and nose, your eyeballs will pop out and mix with your brains. Mabel screamed, teacher, what nonsense are you saying? How could you possibly know what someone who died from jumping off a building looks like? Because that's exactly how I died in my past life, by falling too. My name is Jillian, and I am indeed the best psychology professor at Capital University. My standard rate for private counseling sessions starts at $2,000 per hour. However, I've always offered psychological counseling to Kyoto University students free of charge. Because of this, many students came to see me as their trusted confidant. I never kept my guard up around these kids, whose eyes often held a kind of clear, naive innocence. In my previous life, Mabel came to see me as well. She was the campus belle of the performing arts department, but got caught cheating on her final theory exam and was reported on the spot by a fellow student in the same exam hall. The invigilator confiscated Mabel's paper, and her grade for that subject was invalidated. To make matters worse, Mabel was already a minor celebrity, a rising starlet. While still in school, news of her getting caught cheating spread like wildfire among the students in the exam hall almost instantly. Even on the official fan community for Jinglin University, people were posting and discussing the incident. She was on the verge of having her reputation ruined over a single instance of exam cheating, anxious and on the verge of a breakdown. Mabel came to find me at the school's counseling center that day. I listened patiently as she poured her heart out, and spent the entire day helping her work through it. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief until her spirits lifted again. Before leaving the counseling room, Mabel turned to me and said, Miss Jillian, I've come to terms with things now. Please keep what I said about wanting to jump off a building confidential. A counselor's primary duty is to respect a client's privacy. However, there's an unwritten rule in university counseling centers. If a student shows signs of depression or suicidal ideation, the school and parents must be notified. This rule reads more like a disclaimer from the school. The institution has fulfilled all its obligations, and should anything happen to a student, the school bears no primary responsibility. However, from the perspective of a psychologist and their patient, this regulation is actually quite unreasonable. Just as I was hesitating, Mabel pleaded with me, if word gets out that I came to the counseling center, my cheating scandal will become known to the whole school. I would literally die of shame. Miss Jillian, please, don't tell my advisor, and definitely don't tell my parents. I'm begging you. Her demeanor was so pitifully humble that I truly believed she was remorseful about cheating. I promised her, I'll keep your secret. I also hope you can move forward, learn from your mistake, and correct it. It was just a minor final Exam, it won't define your entire life. Mabel kept thanking me, saying she had decided to face her mistake and retake the course next semester. I thought that was the end of the matter. I never expected to be woken up by an urgent call from the school in the early hours of the next morning. The moment I answered, I was met with the roaring voice of the dean of the art school. A student is about to jump. Get to the campus right now. 3. Mabel stood on the rooftop of the 20-story academic building all night. She was only discovered by a cleaning lady as dawn was breaking in the early hours. Hundreds of students gathered below the building to watch. The dean, senior college officials, and fire crews all rushed to the scene immediately. From the rooftop, Mabel cried out in despair, "I didn't cheat on the exam. Another student in the room is lying about me. What do I have to do to make you believe me?" After screaming those words, she moved to jump from the balcony, yet her hands clung tightly to the railing. Firefighters rushed in just in time and pulled Mabel to safety. Almost simultaneously, news of Mabel's jump from a building at Jingling University rocketed to the top of the trending charts. Hashtag Mabel jumps to prove her innocence. Hashtag Mabel, I did not cheat on the exam. Hashtag Mabel's fatal jump. These trending topics completely drowned out the earlier discussions accusing Mabel of cheating on her finals. Overnight, her fans were heartbroken, while casual observers were stunned. People lamented that Mabel was like a poor, delicate flower, nearly destroyed by a classmates' malicious report. The official social media account of Jingling University was also flooded by Mabel's fans. They made a stern and righteous demand for Jingling University to expel the student who reported Mabel for cheating, and insisted the school issue an official, stamped document to clear Mabel's name of the cheating allegations. Under immense pressure, the university initiated a chain of accountability, and the blame ultimately landed squarely on me. Mabel came to see you at the counseling center on the day she jumped. Why didn't you report it to the school immediately? Why didn't you notify Mabel's parents right away? I had no defense. My only recourse was to go to Mabel and ask her to explain that it was she who had sworn me to secrecy that day. Facing the senior colonel, Mabel wore an expression of shattered innocence. When did I ever ask Ms. Jillian to keep a secret from me? It's true I went to Ms. Jillian. Her counseling was highly unprofessional. She even encouraged me to admit to cheating, but I never cheated at all. Mabel looked me in the eye. Ms. Jillian, how can you lie like this? As a psychologist, if Ms. Jillian had told my counselor and parents about my situation back then, I might have been able to see things differently. The wind on the rooftop of the teaching building was so cold. Who would stand up there all night if they weren't truly desperate and helpless? Mabel hugged herself helplessly, a fitting gesture for the fragile, broken ingenue actress she was known for. With that single act, she tugged at the heartstrings of every man present, including the school administrators. My fiancé Xavier, who was there to confront the situation with me, gave me a subtle look. To my surprise, he took off his own coat and personally draped it over Mabel's shoulders. That day, I was found derelict in my duties and was dismissed from Jingling University before the semester began. Mabel's parents also sued me for negligence, demanding I pay $500,000 in compensation for their daughter's emotional distress. Mabel's fans doxed my personal information online, sent dead cats and dogs to my home, and wished for me to get hit by a car. My parents were utterly exhausted from the relentless harassment. At my most helpless and desperate moment, my fiancé Xavier called me cold-hearted and unfeeling, then turned around to text Mabel, saying his heart ached for her. 1 month later, I stood on the rooftop of the teaching building. Mabel lied. When a person is truly in utter despair and resolved to die, they cannot feel the chill of the night wind, for the coldness of the heart far surpasses the coldness of the sky. I am a psychiatrist, but I cannot heal myself. I jumped from the 20th floor. There were no students watching, no sympathy from the school administrators, and not even the firefighters could get there in time to save me. I fell from that height onto the hard concrete below, my body shattered and broken, a wretched sight. My spirit did not completely dissipate. I saw that after my death, the school covered the whole thing up. A few kids I had once counseled left flowers for me at the spot where I jumped, only for a security guard to rudely toss them into the trash. Mabel also brought flowers, and she had specifically invited the media for an interview. Although Ms. Jillian was neither a qualified teacher nor a competent psychologist, I have forgiven her for her mistakes. Press releases started circulating online, again, praising Mabel for her kindness and magnanimity in forgiving the unethical teacher who nearly ruined her life. After the media left, I overheard Mabel's agent debriefing her. By using a suicide attempt to cover up the cheating, the public's focus shifts to a celebrity being driven to the brink by the school's pressure. Then, you pin all the blame on the psychologist. At that point, who's even going to care whether you cheated or not? By leveraging public pressure, even the school will Have to back down and expunge your cheating record. That's the perfect, self-contained PR cleanup. I just wanted to use her to whitewash the cheating scandal. Who knew she was so fragile she'd actually jump? And she calls herself a psychologist. With a scornful sneer, Mabel tossed the flowers to the ground as if they were trash. There was no reversal of fortune. The vindication I deserved never came. What happened after that? Mabel graduated without a hitch and was marketed as the most highly educated and morally upright scholar among the aughts generation of starlets. 5. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the very day Mabel came to me for counseling. She was looking at me uneasily. Why is that, dear Jillian? I suddenly grinned, a smile so dark and unsettling that a look of clear panic flashed across Mabel's face. Oh, it's nothing, just a joke. I just want you to know. If you ever get it into your head to jump off a building, well, let's just say it's not a pretty way to go. You're the campus belle and a rising star with a bright future ahead of you. You absolutely must not do anything rash. My smile grew increasingly gentle, and Mabel soon let her guard down. The things she confided in me were exactly the same as in my past life. At the end of our counseling session, Mabel still asked me, "Ms. Jillian, I don't want to jump anymore. Can you keep what happened today a secret?" "I understand," I replied with a smile. "I won't report it to the school or tell your parents, otherwise, your cheating incident would become a much bigger deal, wouldn't it?" Mabel nodded, looking at me with gratitude. She was top of her acting class in the performance department. She certainly had the skills for deception. In my past life, wasn't I fooled by this very act of hers, this hypocritical sincerity? Only after securing my promise did Mabel leave the counseling room. I glanced at the time. It was already 8 in the evening, based on my past life's knowledge. That bitch would show up on the rooftop in half an hour. She's timing it this way so she can pin all the blame on me, the school counselor, later. So, the moment Mabel left, I immediately called her academic advisor. "Your student cheated on an exam and is now so ashamed she's talking about killing herself. You deal with it." Advisor Joe let out a sharp shriek over the phone, and I could even hear the loud thud of him tumbling out of bed. I got her parents' number from the counselor and called them. "Your daughter was caught cheating on the exam and is so ashamed she can't face anyone. She's talking about jumping off a building right now." Then I called her fiancé, Xavier. "Your precious sweetheart was caught cheating on the exam and is so mortified she doesn't want to live anymore. She's threatening to jump. So why don't you hurry over to the school and play the hero to save the damsel in distress?" I made over a dozen calls back and forth, notifying everyone from the school principal all the way down to the class monitor. One by one, right at 9 o'clock in the evening, a sudden cry of alarm came from outside. "Oh my God, someone's on the roof about to jump." 6. Thanks to my enthusiastic announcement, the stairwell landing was now packed with students eager for a spectacle. They were all in their pajamas, craning their necks to get a look at the rooftop. The counselor and principal were already on the scene, and the fire department was on its way. Mabel was indeed standing on the 20th floor rooftop, but she was inside the guardrail. Her hands behind her were gripping the railing tightly, terrified of accidentally falling. She had been on the rooftop for less than 10 minutes before the principal and teachers surrounded her. This wasn't going according to her script at all. In her past life, after finishing her counseling session with me, she silently stood on the rooftop for an entire night. By sheer coincidence, a drone captured her in a white gauze dress, weeping under the moonlight on the rooftop, a scene of broken beauty. Although she was rescued by firefighters, the footage from the drone, coupled with her later statement, "The wind on the teaching building's rooftop was so cold, if you weren't truly desperate and helpless, who would willingly stand up there all night?" tugged at the heartstrings of countless netizens and fans. This time, the principal and the counselor rushed over with great fanfare, leaving Mabel no chance to put on a pity show. The students gathered at the stairwell chattered away. Why else would someone jump? Got caught cheating on a test and couldn't face the shame. That's all. The words flew into Mabel's ears, filling her with profound embarrassment and humiliation. "Mabel, we can talk this through. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't do anything rash." The principal came in person to talk her down. Mabel was in too deep to back out now. She had to see this charade through, forcing out a few tears. "Principal, I didn't cheat. If you don't believe me, have the proctor and the student who accused me come here right now to confront me. That way, we can clear my name in front of everyone." The principal had already been briefed by the counselor. He readily agreed. All right, Mr. Rowan and Chloe will be here shortly. Let's just clear up any misunderstanding. Please, don't do anything rash." The Mr. Rowan the principal mentioned is from the School of Mathematics and Physics. He was the proctor for Mabel's exam. Chloe is Mabel's classmate. She was the one who discovered Mabel hiding cheat sheets in her desk and reported her for cheating on the spot. Rowan and Chloe soon arrived on the rooftop as well. "You two, think carefully. Did Mabel do anything against the rules on the day of the exam? Think back carefully to the details. Was it actual cheating, or just a misunderstanding? We need to clear this up right now." A glint of shrewd intelligence shone in the principal's eyes as he leaned closer to Rowan and Chloe, emphasizing his point. "Don't provoke her." The Subtext in his words was obvious to anyone listening. I saw a flash of smug satisfaction cross Mabel's face. In this situation, even though Rowan and Chloe know Mabel cheated, they can't speak the truth now. If a single word from them provokes Mabel, they'd be unfairly branded as murderers. While it seems Mabel is the one on the rooftop with her life hanging by a thread, the real knife is actually hanging over Rowan and Chloe's heads. Mabel is betting on the state of mind of these two about that exam. Chloe was the first to step forward, stammering and hesitating. You must have seen it wrong during the exam, right? It was all a misunderstanding, wasn't it? The principal patted her shoulder, his tone clearly leading. The students gathered at the stairwell fell silent. Someone muttered under their breath, could it be that we really wronged her? Mabel casually wiped the tears from the corner of her eye, composing herself as she prepared to receive Chloe's clarification and apology. That day in the exam hall, Chloe stammered, then suddenly looked up, her gaze burning into Mabel. I saw it with my own eyes. Mabel was cheating with a cheat sheet. She had it hidden in her desk. 7. What on earth are you talking about? Mabel was utterly horrified. She never imagined that the usually quiet Chloe would dare to report her again, and so loudly at that. I'm not lying. Chloe's voice, full of conviction, completely overpowered Mabel's feeble protest. Mabel, you didn't just cheat. On this morning's art theory exam, you were cheating on the English test this afternoon too. I wasn't in the same exam hall as you this afternoon, but my friend told me everything. There's no evidence now, but if I had been there, I swear I would have reported you again. Chloe, Mabel tried to speak, but Chloe cut her off. You're a chronic cheater. You're already a famous star with everything, fame and fortune. You have it all. Yet you still resort to these underhanded tactics to compete. At school, Mabel, I've had enough of you. Even if the school board were here right now, even if the police were here, I'd still shout it out loud. Mabel, do you really think jumping off a building will erase the fact that you cheated on the exam? The surrounding students gasped in unison. Mabel's face flushed red and then paled, wishing she could rush forward and tear Chloe's mouth shut. The principal's face also turned pale with fright. Not daring to openly threaten Chloe, he instinctively looked toward Rowan. Rowan is the proctor. He's the only one who can outright dismiss Chloe's claim at this moment. Mabel's eyes were welling up with tears, and she was visibly on the verge of collapse. The principal lowered his voice in warning. Mr. Rowan, the student's safety is the top priority. You need to understand what's truly important here. Don't forget, you're still up for tenure review. If anything happens to a student, it won't reflect well on you. I understand, Headmaster Rowan lowered his gaze and replied to the headmaster in a subdued, obedient tone. Headmaster, I didn't cheat. It was all Chloe. She's framing me. She's jealous. Mabel clung tightly to the rooftop railing, crying and making a scene. Seeing how agitated she was, the principal quickly stepped in to take control of the situation. We can't just take Chloe's word for it. Mr. Rowan was the proctor during the exam. I trust he can provide a more accurate account of what happened. The principal nudged Rowan to the front. Mabel, please calm down. Rowan's voice was calm and clear, with a soothing quality that helped put people at ease. With tears glistening in her eyes, Mabel stared at Rowan as if he were a prince about to save her. Teacher, you believe me, don't you? I believe you. Just as Mabel was moved and breathed a sigh of relief, Rowan shifted his tone. I believe you can learn from your mistakes. In future exams, you won't hide cheat sheets and cheat like you did in this one, right? 8. The crowd of onlooking students erupted in another uproar. So, Mabel did cheat. She's trying to force the proctor and her classmates to clear her name by threatening to jump. Professor Rowan has always been upstanding. I believe Professor Rowan. Chloe has always been in the top 3 of our major. I don't think she has any reason to frame Mabel. At this point, nothing the principal or the counselor said made any difference. Humiliated and toyed with in front of everyone, Mabel broke down in tears. This time, they were real, unfazed. Rowan and Chloe turned in unison and shot me a knowing smile. 2 hours earlier, while everyone rushed to the academic building to gawk at the suicide attempt, I intercepted Rowan and Chloe on a side path. They were also involved in the cheating scandal, so they had gotten word that Mabel was threatening to jump. In my past life, Mabel used this jump to reinvent herself as the perfect victim, bowing to public pressure. Jinglin University not only denied Mabel had cheated but also fired the proctor, Professor Rowan, and gave the whistleblower, Chloe, a permanent disciplinary mark on her academic record that would haunt her for life. Chloe was even splashed with acid by one of Mabel's admirers at school, who accused her of slandering their pure-hearted goddess. The cheaters reap fame and fortune, while the whistleblowers meet a grim fate, having been reborn. How could I possibly stand by and do nothing? Rowan and Chloe were clearly shaken by Mabel's suicide attempt. In their current state, if they went up to the rooftop, they'd unquestionably agree with whatever Mabel said. Mabel isn't actually going to kill herself. I stated this fact with complete calm. Rowan and Chloe looked at me, somewhat shocked. A student was threatening to jump, and as the school psychologist, my detached reaction was clearly inappropriate. She's using the threat of jumping to force the school to erase her cheating record. If you given up there on the roof and say the previous exam incident was a misunderstanding, Mabel will absolutely latch onto that and turn around to accuse you of slander and persecution. I patted Rowan on the shoulder, warning him, Professor Rowan, you just earned your lectureship. Don't let a moment of misplaced compassion ruin your career prospects. Chloe, reporting a classmate for cheating is an act of justice that upholds fairness. Since you've made the report, you must stand firm and not back down, otherwise, you'll be accused of making a false allegation against a fellow student, which could result in a major disciplinary mark on your school record. Once a student receives a major disciplinary mark, they become ineligible for all the honors, awards, and scholarships within the college. I knew Chloe was an outstanding student but came from a poor family. She needed to win the first-class scholarship every year to cover all her educational expenses. If another student had seen Mabel cheating, they might have pretended not to notice, but for Chloe, every correct answer Mabel gained for cheating could potentially cost her the top scholarship. Therefore, she was bound to report Mabel. What she was defending was not just fairness, but her own vital interests. The panic in Chloe's eyes faded. She had clearly been enlightened by my words. 9. She's just acting, right? She wouldn't actually jump, would she? Rowan double-checked with me. I nodded and showed them Mabel's schedule for next month. Not only was she about to start filming for a new project, but she also had an ad shoot lined up with a top-tier celebrity. A star like her, with fame and fortune, would never take her own life over something as trivial as cheating, even if she were expelled for cheating. With Mabel's family background, studying abroad would be a perfectly viable alternative. Mabel's family wasn't exactly wealthy, but her parents were immensely proud of her and spent nearly everything they had to support her dream of stardom. She wasn't like Chloe, small-town grind with no other options. Mabel had plenty of fallback plans. She's just trying to force the school into clearing her cheating record by threatening to jump. If you actually back down and retract the cheating allegation, you'll be accused of slandering a good student. Then, all the blame will be shifted onto you. Just then, Rowan's phone rang. It was the principal calling to hurry them along. You two were the ones who reported the exam cheating together. Now Mabel is threatening to kill herself. Why aren't you getting up to the roof to deal with this? The principal's implication was crystal clear. Rowan and Chloe could provide some false testimony to placate Mabel, as long as they could tuck her down from the rooftop. But that phone call of his, well, it came a bit too late. 10. She's been crying this whole time, but does she really seem like she's going to jump? The students who had gathered around now knew the truth, and they began to eye Mabel, the cheating clown, with mocking gazes. Mabel genuinely seemed to be having a complete emotional breakdown. The testimonies from Rowan and Chloe had all but destroyed her reputation at Jinglin University, yet, no matter how much she sobbed and wailed, her hands remained clamped tightly to the railing, terrified she might accidentally fall. People who are that selfish are always the ones who cling to life the hardest. I checked the map for traffic. It was Saturday, and 9 p.m. was right in the middle of rush hour, arriving just before the fire department were Mabel's parents, who lived nearby, and Mabel's parents had come ready to defend their daughter. But the moment they arrived, they pieced together the whole story from the students' chatter. Mabel's father was mortified. Pointing at her, he yelled, I didn't believe it when your teacher called to say you cheated on the exam, but it's actually true, Mabel. I'm a university professor, and you're in university and you cheat. Have you no shame? As a psychologist, I should have intervened when Mabel's father said those things. Too many tragic cases have shown us that sometimes, the final straw that breaks a child's back is their own parents. A few years ago, a girl was about to jump off a building. The firefighters had almost talked her down, but then her parents rushed over, slapped her, called her dramatic, and told her if she really wanted to die, she should drink pesticide instead of putting on this jumping act. In that very instant, the girl sprinted to the edge of the rooftop and leaped off without a moment's hesitation. I had been on guard and managed to grab her hand just in time. Together with the firefighters, we stopped her from jumping. My hand was strained from the effort, and it aches every winter. I helped that girl see things in a new light. She eventually left her parents, made a life for herself in the big city, and is now living on her own terms. She once wrote me a thank you letter, saying I had saved her. Every time my right hand aches, it reminds me that I once saved a person's life. That salvation wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, too. For those who study psychology, redeeming a person is the mission of the discipline. In a past life, Mabel was also someone I saw as a subject of redemption, but what did she give me in return? Clearly, Mabel was utterly unworthy of my redemption. 11. Humiliated by her father like that, Mabel wasn't provoked enough to jump. But she didn't leave the rooftop either. I knew what she was waiting for. She was waiting for the fire department to arrive. In her past life, she had deliberately waited until the firefighters were in position before starting her act of pretending to jump. She wanted to make sure they could save her in time once her performance began. Finally, the fire department arrived. Mabel suddenly glared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Jillian, was it you who called and told everyone I wanted to kill myself? I looked her straight in the eye and did not deny it. You promised to keep it a secret, Jillian. Is this your professional integrity? As a counselor, you told me you were going to kill yourself. Of course I had to report it to the school, I said with an innocent look. If you came here tonight to jump and I hadn't reported it, wouldn't that be a dereliction of my duty? Mabel snapped in frustration. I'd be better off dead. She feebly tried to climb over the railing, but the moment she lifted her leg, a firefighter swiftly pulled her to safety. Mabel threw a full-blown tantrum in the firefighter's arms, kicking and screaming. It's all Jillian's fault. Why did she have to tell everyone my private business? She drove me to this. Principal, aren't you going to fire such an irresponsible teacher? With Jillian in this school for even one more day, I swear I'll get depression. The principal gave me a helpless, troubled look. The incident with the attempted jump tonight has already blown up. The school will inevitably find a scapegoat to throw under the bus. After all, Mabel is a public figure, the star power she carries is precisely the kind of public relations nightmare the principal fears. Ms. Jillian, as a teacher, you really shouldn't have broadcast a student's private confession to you to the entire world, I scoffed. Wasn't that the rule you established? Principal, if a student shows suicidal tendencies, it must be reported to the school and the family. I was just following the procedure you laid out. The principal, feeling cornered, snapped. You should have been more flexible. Besides, if you promised to keep a secret, you should have kept it. If it weren't for you, this whole situation wouldn't have become such a public spectacle. Oh, I said, feigning sudden understanding. I get it now. No matter what I do, it's wrong. As a teacher, when you're faced with something like this, it's a no-win situation. If I keep this secret and Mabel jumps today, the school will pin the whole blame on me tomorrow. But I followed the proper procedures by reporting it to the school and managed to stop the suicide attempt in time, and now you're accusing me of violating the student's privacy. If I can't do anything right, then what's the point of living like this? I turned and jogged towards the edge of the rooftop. When the principal realized my intention, he was so startled his glasses fell off. Ms. Jillian, don't do anything rash. Please, calm down. Rowan and the firefighters stopped me just in time. I didn't even get close to the guardrail. The principal was thoroughly intimidated by me and never dared to mention holding me accountable again. Mabel kept her head down, but her eyes rolled up to fix me with a sinister glare. I just smiled. As I walked down from the rooftop, I made a point of passing right by her and tossed her a casual remark. Who doesn't know how to play these little manipulative games? 12. My fiancé, Xavier, didn't show up until the night's farce was drawing to a close. Mabel and I left the teaching building one right after the other. I was walking ahead, but Xavier merely glanced at me before quickening his pace to catch up with Mabel. Seeing how thinly she was dressed, Xavier immediately took off his own black overcoat and draped it over Mabel's shoulders. Mabel felt a lump in her throat. Xavier, if you do this, Professor Jillian will be upset. Xavier is a professor at the university next door, and also my fiancé in name only. He's just over 30, but his hair turned white during his PhD. Fortunately, with his sharp features, the silver hair doesn't make him look old. Instead, it gives him a unique, scholarly air that has quite a few students captivated. Students from Jinglin University would sometimes sneak into Xavier's lectures at the neighboring college, and Mabel was the most enthusiastic among them. The moment class ended, Mabel would rush to ask Xavier questions, even more eagerly than his own students. Over time, the dynamic between the teacher and this student grew subtly complicated. If it weren't for me, his fiancé, Xavier would have confessed his feelings to Mabel long ago. I had my suspicions from the start, but to be honest, I didn't really care. Xavier and I grew up together. Since we were kids, it was always him who couldn't do without me, not the other way around. In my past life, when my reputation was in ruins, Xavier did the same thing. He left me to go comfort Mabel. I've been utterly disappointed in him for a long time. I can't even bring myself to look his way. If I had to go through it all again, that man wouldn't stir a single emotion in me. Jillian, I heard Mabel came to you for counseling before she jumped. As a psychologist, why didn't you pick up on the signs and talk her down? After expressing his concern for Mabel, Xavier confronted me in front of the lingering students and teachers. And what was the point of that phone call you just made to me? Mabel was about to jump, and you showed no concern. You even sounded a bit pleased about it. Mabel is just a girl. As her teacher, you have a responsibility to her. Are you finished, Xavier? I cut him off with a weary sigh. Xavier was taken aback. Apologize to Mabel right now, and I'll forgive you. I let out a cold, derisive laugh. All these years, I've been the one teaching you how to love. 20 years, and you finally learned, but you're using what I taught you to love. Mabel. Xavier, what gives you the right to demand an apology from me? The right of being your boyfriend, your fiancé. Not anymore. I pulled the engagement ring off my left ring finger. I should have tossed this thing the moment I was reborn. I calmly threw the ring into his hand and said, "We're done." The ring fell to the floor. As Xavier bent down to pick it up, by the time he straightened again, all he could see was my retreating back, my departure cool and without a single glance behind. 13. I went home, had a good, long sleep, and upon waking and checking my phone, I saw a public statement issued by Jing University. In the statement, the university cleared Mabel of the cheating allegations, calling it all a misunderstanding, and said that with the matter resolved, it was best to leave it at that. Mabel will be given a chance to retake the exam. Beyond that, no other teachers or students will face disciplinary action over this incident. I'm not at all surprised the school is issuing this statement, given how big this scandal has become, and with Mabel being a public figure. Jinglin University is bound to want to hush things up to protect its prestigious reputation. The outcome was similar in my past life, only it cost Rowan and Chloe their futures, along with my own life. This is the best outcome I could manage in this lifetime. The principal didn't come after me either. Sure enough, after I jumped off the building right in front of him and established my reputation as an unhinged person not to be messed with, even the principal didn't dare to bother me again. The matter was brought to a close with the school's official statement. I took a week off to spend quality time with my parents, helping them come to terms with the fact that Xavier and I wouldn't be getting married. Then I went back to my little cottage and threw everything Xavier had left at my place straight into the trash. There was also a transparent medicine cabinet. When I opened it, I found it was full of oral psychiatric medications, some of which were nearly expired. It seems Xavier hadn't been taking his medication for a long time. On TV, an entertainment interview was airing featuring Mabel's first public appearance since the scandal. I took some time off recently because of certain things, Mabel said on camera, taking a deliberate deep breath and widening her eyes in a visibly pained effort to hold back tears. I've actually been struggling with depressive symptoms for a while. What happened at school was utterly devastating, both mentally and physically. I went to see the counselor at the school's psychological consultation office. I confided so much in her, believing she would keep everything confidential. I never imagined that the moment I left her office, that counselor immediately reported all my private secrets to the school administration and even told my parents. Mabel continued, wiping away her falling tears. I trusted her completely, and to be treated like this, it's the first time in my life I've ever felt such a profound sense of betrayal. 14. She deliberately steered clear of the controversy surrounding the incident at school, shifting all the blame onto me. After the interview aired, Mabel's fans quickly figured out that the psychology teacher she mentioned was me. Before the online harassment and doxing could begin, I proactively registered an account under the name Jillian, psychology teacher at Jingde University. I directly responded to Mabel's interview with an audio recording. I hit record the moment I was reborn, so every single thing Mabel confided in me was captured in detail. MS, Jillian, I did cheat, I admit that, but I know I was wrong now, so why is Chloe still coming after me? All I wanted was to get my GPA up enough to secure a postgraduate recommendation. I wasn't even trying to compete with her for any scholarship. She's so bitter and petty that she reported me for cheating. What a vile, terrifying person. I'm so busy filming every day. How on earth was I supposed to find time to study for my final exams? Let's be brutally honest here. For a superstar like me to even show up on time for a pointless, easy final exam is already a massive concession on my part. Even if we entertain the idea that I was wrong to cheat, does that mean Chloe, the one who snitched, is completely blameless? My dad is obsessed with saving face. If he ever found out I cheated on an exam, my life would literally be over. The moment these recordings were posted online, they shot straight to the top of the trending charts and stayed there for a full 2 days. Mabel called me in a furious rage, demanding I delete the recording and threatening to sue me. I gave a cold laugh. According to the confidentiality exceptions for psychological counselors, when a client's actions pose a significant risk of self-harm, such as a counselor determining suicidal intent, confidentiality is not required. In fact, it's our duty to notify relevant parties and take appropriate protective measures. I continued, Mabel, from a professional standpoint, you have no leg to stand on. However, I'll admit that releasing those recordings wasn't respectful of your privacy, but since you've already publicly dragged my name through the mud, I might as well give you a proper surprise. Before you sue me for violating your privacy, I could sue you for defaming my reputation in the media. I earn nearly $1 million a year, and some of my clients are top-tier lawyers who happen to be good friends of mine. If you want to play the litigation game, I have plenty of time and resources to drag this out. I stirred my coffee leisurely and said, but you must be in a real bind now. Look around. Who cares about who your so-called psychology teacher is at this point? They're all just watching you, the cheating clown, make a fool of yourself, using one hot topic to bury another. That's a PR trick I learned from your agent. I've made it my own, and now I'm using it to clean up my own image. Oh, by the way, instead of yelling at me here, you should be more worried about your own career. I hear the entertainment industry loves to kick people when they're down, with a blunder. This big, your rivals must be absolutely thrilled. On the phone, Mabel would only curse at me with the filthiest language. That's what a cornered animal does. 15, just as I expected. That recording turned Mabel from a rising star into a certified cheater. Her rival seized the moment and dug up some tax issues on her. At this point, even her ruthless manager was left powerless. The Chin family exhausted all their connections and fortune over 5 years to forcefully elevate Mabel into a rising starlet, yet the industry managed to blacklist her in just 5 days. After her attempted clarification at school, she was exposed for cheating again, embarrassing the institution. With her career in ruins, the principal showed her no further leniency and expelled her outright. Following Mabel's blacklisting, the Chin family had to pay substantial breach of contract penalties, likely draining their entire fortune. When she returned to school to collect her belongings, Xavier came to pick her up. Word is, after Mabel got cancelled, Xavier finally confessed his feelings and she said yes. Xavier carried her bags and bought her water. When some students started whispering about Mabel, he told them off right then and there. He really seems like such a thoughtful boyfriend. I ran into them just as they were leaving campus. Xavier looked at me, as if he wanted to blame me for something. I shot him a glare, and Xavier didn't dare utter a word. He took Mabel's suitcase and put it in the car. Mabel glared at me resentfully. Your boyfriend is mine now. As the spouse of a university professor, I can get a permanent university position directly, even if I don't become a star. I'll live more comfortably than you. I smiled. My position was earned through my own hard work and exams. Yours depends entirely on being married to a man, and you're proud of that. Mabel was left speechless by my remark, and the look on her face was priceless. I kindly reminded her, even a professor's spouse needs a master's degree to get a permanent position. You know, I sized Mabel up and said, if I remember correctly, you dropped out of college. Your highest actual diploma is just a high school one. Even if your husband is an academician, with just a high school education like yours, you won't qualify for a university staff position. Mabel was so provoked that she was grinding her teeth in frustration. She stewed for a long time but couldn't muster a single strong retort. I saw your interview where you said you have depression. You don't seem like the type to get depressed. Do you know what they say in the psychology field? I glanced at Xavier, who seemed perfectly normal, and gently reminded her, if you pretend to be mentally ill, you'll eventually attract the real thing. 16. I didn't hear about Mabel again until a year later. She had become a popular art exam prep teacher on Douyin, and her account was dedicated to sharing amusing stories about her students. Initially, only high school students appeared in the videos. After a few of them went viral, she decided to step in front of the camera herself. It didn't take long for people to recognize her as Mabel, the former starlet. Mabel even made a dedicated video explaining that she had settled down, leaving behind the pursuit of fame and fortune. Her focus now was solely on being a good arts examination tutor, helping more children with acting dreams achieve their goals. With her delicate features, she had a vulnerable, pitiable air about her. Whenever she showed the slightest emotion, netizens' moral compass is all too easily swayed by a pretty face. Before long, Mabel was trending again on short-form videos. The reason I came across her video was because she subtly threw shade at me in her latest upload. In this video, Mabel said she discovered a young girl in her senior high school class was in a puppy-love relationship. The girl had a crush on a sophomore university student. However, the girl's grades were poor, even if she repeated her final year, she wouldn't get into the university her crush attended. This made her feel insecure and depressed, causing her grades to keep slipping. I was the one who noticed something was off with her and initiated the conversation. I won't disclose this child's personal information to you, not even to her parents. I promised her I'd keep it a secret. I'm not like a certain school counselor who treats students' private matters as gossip fodder. That wasn't even a veiled jab anymore. It was a direct call-out aimed straight at me. I didn't have time to argue with her. My only concern was the girl's mental state. According to Mabel, if a girl under the immense pressure of her final year of high school is showing signs of low self-esteem, despondency, and declining grades due to a teenage romance, it's crucial to consider depression and intervene promptly. I managed to get Mabel's new number and warned her. You should report this to the school immediately, inform the girls' parents, and have them take her to see a psychologist. This is very likely an early sign of depression. Get a psychologist involved as soon as possible. Don't let it ruin her chances on the college entrance exams. Mabel said disdainfully, Jillian, who do you think you are? Since when do I need you to tell me what to do? I'll help this girl keep her secret. She doesn't need to see a therapist. I'm the best counselor she could have. I can guide her through this. Mabel, you're going to ruin that child if you keep this up. She's right here practicing the piano next to me, and she's doing perfectly fine. The moment she finished speaking, a dull thud suddenly came through the phone. After a moment of dead silence, Mabel's terrified scream nearly pierced my eardrum. Hearing that sound, a familiar and unsettling phantom pain washed over me. It was likely the same kind of impact I had experienced when I fell from a high-rise in a past life. 17, a dull thud echoed, followed by a wave of piercing screams. By the time I drove to the scene, the paramedics had already covered the little girl with a white sheet. The girl's parents rushed forward and began attacking Mabel. "Why didn't you tell us," her parents, "that our daughter was depressed over her puppy love, and you were over there posting videos? Were you just using my daughter for clicks? You bitch, I'll kill you." Mabel had a chunk of her scalp torn out by her parents. She screamed in agony. The police finally arrived, and Xavier showed up late as well. After giving my statement at the police station, Xavier walked me out. This time, he left Mabel behind. "I'm going to divorce Mabel." Xavier let out a sigh and said, "It wasn't until what happened today that I finally understood the difficult position you were in back then, Jillian. I'm sorry," he said, reaching out to grasp my fingers just like when we were kids, his eyes filled with a humble plea. "Mabel is no match for you. I was wrong, Jillian. Please forgive me. Can we start over?" Xavier suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace, his whole body trembling faintly. "I heard that his work at the university hasn't been going well this past year either, and it seems another patch of white has appeared in his hair. You haven't taken your medication in a while, have you?" Xavier looked at me, his gaze hungry, and said, "You are my cure, Jillian. I know you studied psychology just to heal me. Ever since we were kids, you've been my medicine, more effective than any diazepam." I was almost gasping for air until the police intervened and pulled Xavier away. The moment he was pulled away, I slapped him across the face. "Xavier, you're nothing but my dog. A dog that finds a new master is a traitor. Don't you ever think of coming back to me. Go live your happy little life with your precious Mabel, asshole." After hurling those words, I turned and walked away. Behind me, Xavier's furious roar sounded like a caged beast gone mad. I know that time bomb of his is about to go off. 18, harassed relentlessly by the girl's parents. Mabel was utterly exhausted. It took her a week to finally extricate herself from the police station and return home. Subsequently, she will face a lawsuit from the girl's parents, who will hold her accountable as the teacher for failing to properly supervise the student and for not informing the parents in a timely manner when the student showed signs of suicidal thoughts. All the hurt Mabel inflicted on me came back to haunt her, like a boomerang, the moment she stepped inside. The smell of smoke and alcohol hit her. Clicking in her high heels, she found Xavier on the balcony, unshaven, reeking of smoke and booze. He was slumped on the floor, murmuring my name. In that instant, Mabel snapped, "So you're thinking about Jillian? If you like her that much, why don't you just go find her? Am I not enough for you? You're still thinking about Jillian." Xavier suddenly clutched his head, curling up in agony in the corner. "Jillian, Jillian, no one is better than Jillian," he suddenly glared at Mabel. "What are you, anyway? How could you possibly compare to Jillian?" Mabel's face went pale with rage. "Xavier, if I hadn't been blacklisted back then, do you really think I'd have given you the time of day? Let me tell you, a two-faced hypocrite like you, not only do I despise you, but Jillian wants nothing to do with you either." "What did you say?" "I said Jillian dumped you. She tossed you out like trash. Do you get it now?" Mabel finished speaking, turned, and walked away without a backward glance, completely unaware that behind her, Xavier rose to his feet, his face ashen with utter despair. At the very moment Mabel turned her back, Xavier jumped from the 15th floor balcony. From the corner of her eye, Mabel only caught the sight of his body tilting backwards. By the time her mind processed what was happening, Xavier's body had already hit the ground, a fresh pool of blood spreading across the courtyard pavement. 19. I wasn't surprised to hear about Xavier's death. I knew all along that he wouldn't last long without me. When I saw Mabel again 6 months later, she was already a convict. When Xavier fell from the building, Mabel was the only one present. Xavier's family sued her, claiming she deliberately provoked him with her words while he was intoxicated, which led to his fatal misstep. Xavier's family hired a formidable lawyer, determined to get justice for his death. Mabel was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. When I sat down across from her, I could barely recognize her. Her face was sallow and haggard, bearing no resemblance to the movie star she once was. The look in her eyes had changed, like a demon crawled up from hell, fixated on me with a deathly stare. "I heard you fell ill in prison and haven't been right in the head since you woke up. I'm a psychiatrist. I can offer you some counseling. Spare me the act." Mabel's glare was murderous. "Jillian, I remember everything now. You're the one who's supposed to be dead. You're the one who was smashed to pieces. You've been sabotaging me from the very beginning. You're the one who made me like this." Hearing her say those words, I knew she had been reborn too. What a terrible time to be reborn, starting off right in a prison cell. "It's a bit late for you to come to your senses now, isn't it?" I took off my sunglasses. "Honestly, you're sitting here today under a complete misunderstanding." "What do you mean? Do you know why I became a Psychiatrist, because my childhood best friend has schizophrenia. I studied psychology specifically to help him. When he has an episode, his whole body trembles, he rambles incoherently, loses touch with reality, and can't handle stress. If he's pushed too far, he'll resort to extreme actions, like murder, or jumping off a building. Mabel turned pale. What do you mean? Are you saying Xavier has schizophrenia? You never noticed. Well, it's true. It would be hard for you to spot, as the only child of the Xavier family. Xavier was subjected to an oppressive upbringing in the relentless pursuit of his success. Consequently, he developed mental health issues as early as high school. Mabel, I warned you, when you started using depression and other mental illnesses to whitewash your image and play the victim, you should have known the backlash would come. 20. Mabel recalled Xavier's every word and action in disbelief, but he seemed perfectly normal. Do you know why his emotions are so steady? I told her, almost as a mercy. After all these years with me, Xavier has always found me to be his best sedative. I spent a decade offering him psychological guidance and emotional support. That kind of companionship is far more effective than any psychiatric medication. Xavier never knew how to love someone. I was the one who taught him. I taught him that if I was cold, he should proactively put a coat over my shoulders. That's what a considerate lover does. It took him 5 years to learn it, and once he did, he couldn't wait to fuss over whether you're warm or cold, rushing to drape a coat over your shoulders. I couldn't help but sigh with feeling. A patient who thinks they're cured and dares to cast aside their doctor after using them. Such a patient will come to no good end. He had a mental illness. Why wasn't that discovered during the investigation? Why? Mabel was both horrified and harbored a strange, secret delight, so he jumped. Because he was schizophrenic. It had nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. The medical records. If I can just find the medical records, I can clear my name. There are no records. With that one sentence, I dashed her hopes. Xavier was a man of immense pride. His schizophrenia, even his own parents didn't know. Only I did. He didn't want me to keep a file on him. He was afraid people would find out he had mental problems, unless I testify for you in court as your psychiatrist. A sudden light ignited in Mabel's eyes, and she nearly dropped to her knees begging me, Jillian, please, please get me out of here. Everything that happened before was my fault. All of it in our past lives was my mistake. I was too selfish. I'm begging you to testify for me. I can't spend another moment in this prison. I'll die. No, why not? Through the transparent glass, I stared into Mabel's tear-filled eyes, a savage thrill of vengeance rising in my chest, because this is Xavier's secret, as a psychiatrist, I must keep my patient's secrets. Mabel's shock turned to despair. She pounded on the glass in fury, only to be swiftly restrained and led back to her cell by the guards. Her screams and cries along the way were such a delightful sound. She died of sheer terror in her cell the very next day. Her rebirth came with only a 2-day trial, but my rebirth is different. I continue to work as a school counselor. When I encounter children oppressed by their families, I focus on providing psychological guidance to their parents. The root of a child's psychological issues often lies with their parents. That's where the core problem resides. Walking in the sunlight, I am greeted by a true rebirth. The end. Story 2, Chapter 1. My roommate is a firm believer in all things natural and refuses to use anything chemically synthesized. When she had a high fever, I kindly took her to the hospital to get a shot to reduce it, but she accused me of meddling and claimed that the medication had harmed her body. Later, when she had trouble getting pregnant, she also blamed it on that time I took her to get the shot, completely forgetting that she never used protection and had multiple abortions. She told her husband about it and demanded that I bear a child for him. I refused and fought back desperately while trying to subdue me. Her husband accidentally killed me. My roommate just stood by watching coldly and said I had it coming. To my surprise, when I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at the beginning of my college days. Sunscreen is just a bunch of synthetic chemicals. I can't believe you'd actually put that on your faces. You've got some nerve, Judith said as she snatched the sunscreen from her hands and tossed it out the window. Seeing this scene unfold before me, I realized I had been reborn back to my freshman year military training. We were all slathering on layers of sunscreen, but Judith, being the odd one out, not only refused to wear any herself but also forbade the rest of us from using it. She pulled the same stunt in my past life, and I let it slide back then, but now that I've been reborn, I'm not putting up with her nonsense anymore. This time around, I marched right up and slapped her across the face. Judith, just because you can't afford sunscreen doesn't mean you get to stop others from using it. What's your problem? I'm telling you now, go downstairs and pick up every last bottle of sunscreen you threw away. If you can't retrieve them all, you're paying me back for every cent. Judith stared back at me with the dramatic flair of a chumya drama heroine, demanding, Joy, how dare you hit me? You had no right to throw my things away, and I had every right to hit you. If you pull that again, I'll do it again. Go ahead, test me. Judith wanted to ask the other 2 girls in the dorm for help, but they ignored her too. Judith looked at the rest of us as if we were about to commit suicide. Her eyes filled with pity, and here I was trying to help, but you just bit the Hand that feeds you, slather those chemical concoctions on your face, and it'll rot right off. Judith is deeply suspicious of any product created after the nation's founding, convinced they're all harmful to health. She acts like these are some kind of mythical creatures, as if anything made after the founding shouldn't even exist. In our previous dorm life, I tried to keep peace since we were roommates. My patience backfired. She mistook it for agreement and became increasingly unreasonable. Once when she had a high fever, she refused all medication and hospital visits despite our desperate pleas. When her fever persisted for too long, I insisted on calling an ambulance against her wishes and had her taken to the hospital. Her fever finally broke after receiving 4 fluids. The doctor warned that any further delay could have led to dire consequences, but Judith didn't see it that way. She thought the doctor was just fear-mongering. She ended up resenting me over this incident, convinced that the fever-reducing medication administered to her had caused physical harm, so when she struggled to get pregnant later, she pinned the blame squarely on me. She conveniently left out the fact that she'd had multiple abortions before, never using any protection, and then her husband, upon hearing this, actually broke into my house in the dead of night, demanding I have a child to make it up to him. I refused, and while I was fighting him off, her husband beat me to death, and she just stood there watching coldly. That look in her eyes is something I'll never forget. Since I've been given a second chance, I'm certainly not going to make things easy for her. Judith was still there sobbing, and I couldn't be bothered to drag this out any longer. I told her, if you won't pick them up, then you'll have to pay for them at full price. Seeing that I wasn't going to let this go, Judith reluctantly went downstairs to retrieve the sunscreen she had thrown away. If it weren't for the fact that military training is about to start and there's no time to go by more, I wouldn't have let her off so easily. Listen up, Judith, consider this your final warning. Just pick everything up and we'll call it even, but if this happens again, you'll be paying me back at full price. In our previous life, Judith always pretended to throw away our cosmetics and skincare products under the guise of doing us a favor. In reality, she was selling them for cash and spending all the money herself, knowing her family was struggling. We didn't make a big deal out of it. We just started locking our essentials in cabinets to keep her from stealing them. Judith presents herself as someone aspiring to rise above worldly concerns, but in reality, she engages in all sorts of shady and underhanded activities. 2 weeks later, the military training came to an end, and we officially embarked on our college life. Since I had been giving Judith the cold shoulder, she wisely kept her distance and didn't provoke me during this period. We managed to coexist without any major conflicts, but I knew Judith's peaceful days wouldn't last forever. A major turning point in her life was just around the corner. Judith, the type who's always going on about all natural and harmless, would never blow dry her hair after washing it. Being from the north where indoor heating is common in winter, she could sleep with wet hair without facing any serious consequences, but our city has no central heating, and with the recent cold snap, she managed to catch a cold. Just like in her previous life, she refused to take any medicine after developing a fever. Instead, she kept drinking hot water and doing intense exercise, claiming that sweating it out would cure her. 2 days later, she could barely manage to get out of bed. Her other 2 roommates, Hannah and Monica, kindly offered to take her to the hospital, but she responded with a torrent of abuse. What are you two really up to? Why are you so determined to poison me? Hannah was baffled. I'm trying to help you, not harm you. A persistent high fever can easily lead to complications. That's all nonsense made up by unethical doctors to fool people. The human body has an immune system. I just have a minor cold and will recover on my own soon. It's been 2 days already, and you're getting worse. Even if you're counting on self-recovery, it has to be within a reasonable body temperature range. Hannah, don't think I don't know you have a crush on our class monitor. You see him being extra nice to me lately and you're jealous. So you're trying to kill me out of spite, is that it? Monica couldn't take it anymore. Judith, what's with that tone? We're trying to help you out of kindness. How did that turn into us trying to harm you? We've always taken medicine or gotten shots when we're sick since we were kids. Why is it suddenly poisoning when it comes to you? Nothing you say will change my mind. I'm not going to the hospital, period. The argument ended there, as Judith clearly fell into a deep slumber right after saying those words. Hannah and Monica were so upset that they stopped talking to him altogether. Despite pushing through the high fever in a daze, Judith eventually collapsed on her way to fetch water from the dispensary. The dorm supervisor called an ambulance and had her taken to the hospital. This time, she wasn't as fortunate as in her previous life. Not only did she fail to take measures to reduce her high fever, but she also engaged in strenuous exercise, leading to lactic acid buildup and muscle damage. After receiving medical treatment, she was out of life-threatening danger, but the muscles in her right leg suffered irreversible damage, leaving her with a permanent limp. After recovering, Judith refused to acknowledge that her own ignorance and failure to seek timely medical care had led to such consequences. She insisted it was the medication the hospital gave her that caused her muscle damage, but the facts of the matter were clear, leaving no room for false accusations. Even when she stood in front of the hospital holding a banner and tearfully pleading with anyone who passed by, no one paid her any attention. The hospital later called the police, and it was our university president who went to the station to pick her up. The president warned her to stop before she went too far, stating that if it happened again, the university would issue a formal reprimand. Judith finally settled down, yet she remained convinced of her righteousness, doubling down on her all natural lifestyle with even greater fervor. Chapter 2. Gone were the days of using soap berries for hair washing. Now a quick rinse with plain water sufficed. During her period, she'd use homemade cloth pads stuffed with plant ash instead of sanitary napkins. She got menstrual blood everywhere, and the dorm reeked of that foul odor throughout her period. In her attempt to make plant ash, she nearly got our entire dorm evacuated. She used to burn materials for ash in the campus grove, but last time security caught her in the act. After being reprimanded by security, she now has to do the burning inside the dorm. Judith knew we'd never agree if she burned things right in front of us, so she deliberately picked a day when we all had classes, took time off herself, and started burning plant ashes in the dorm. But she'd barely gotten the fire going when the fire alarm went off and the sprinkler system activated. When we got back to the dorm after class, we were met with a scene of soaked sheets and bedding, and all our electronics completely ruined. Monica's computer was brand new, and when she saw the mess, she looked like she could have strangled Judith. Judith, are you out of your mind? I don't care what you do with your own life, but could you stop screwing other people over? I had to scrimp and save for half a semester, working part-time just to afford that computer. You're going to reimburse me for the full price? Judith remained completely unapologetic. If you can't be bothered to put your things away properly, that's your problem, not mine. It's not like I personally drenched your stuff. The sprinkler was installed by the school. If you want compensation, go take it up with them, I said. Judith, do you really think you can avoid dealing with the school after causing such a scene? Even if we don't report this, the school administration will come looking for you. No sooner had I spoken than our resident advisor showed up. As soon as our advisor showed up, Judith immediately started playing the victim. She claimed she was just minding her own business in the dorm when suddenly she smelled something burning. She insisted one of us must have been using prohibited appliances without permission, and on top of that, we were all ganging up to frame her. Her words made my blood boil. Judith, just because you were the only one present at the time, do you really think you can make up any story you want? Look at the bed sheets and blankets, they're covered in dark soot. It's obvious you burned something and spread ashes all over the room. Judith still refused to back down. That black stuff is clearly from your poor hygiene. You never wash your bedding, and when it gets wet, that's just how it looks, Hannah said. Judith, there's no use digging in your heels. I'm confident the school administration will get to the bottom of this and see that justice is served. All eyes then turned to the only school authority present, the dorm advisor, but the advisor's response was more slippery than spilled water, skillfully avoiding taking a clear stance. In a situation like this, no one in your dorm is blameless. If you can settle this privately and agree not to point fingers, I'll keep it under wraps and not report it to the school. But if you insist on making a big deal out of it, each of you will face disciplinary action. That's guaranteed. Hearing this, Judith looked smug. Hannah and Monica, however, seemed ready to back down. That's when I stepped forward. I believe the school operates on reason and won't punish everyone equally without considering right or wrong. With such clear evidence, I'm confident the advisor can determine the truth. If you can't figure it out, we can always go to the police. I refuse to believe there's no place left where we can get justice. Hearing this, the counselor's face stiffened. In her previous life, Judith was never outstanding in any particular way, yet she always managed to get nominated for awards and scholarships whenever they were available. It wasn't until later that I found out Judith was having an affair with the counselor. He was partly responsible for Judith having multiple abortions, the counselor said. This is such a minor issue, there's no need to involve the police. I also believe our counselor will handle this fairly, so involving the police really isn't necessary. But if we can't get to the bottom of it, that's fine too. My uncle happens to be a police officer. If anyone's concerned about appearances, I could ask him to assist in a personal capacity. My only worry is that someone might question the findings later, but even that's manageable. If anyone suspects unfairness, we can always file a formal police report. I'm sure the police would be more than willing to help restore justice for everyone involved. Hearing this, the counselor quickly changed his tone. Judith, it appears you were using open flames indoors, which triggered the sprinkler system. Fortunately, there was no actual fire and the damage is relatively contained. Here's what we'll do, you'll offer a sincere apology to everyone and cover the full cost of damages. In return, the school won't pursue disciplinary action, but let this be a lesson, make sure nothing like this happens again. Seeing that even her supporter had turned against her, Judith had no choice but to agree through tears. For Hannah and Monica, getting compensation for their losses was already more than they had hoped for. Whether Judith would face disciplinary action was none of their concern. As for me, seeing Judith punished wouldn't ease my hatred. What I want is to watch her and that boyfriend from her past life burn in hell. So we all dropped the issue of disciplinary action, and that's how the matter was settled. The onlookers, seeing there was no more drama to watch, began to disperse and head home. Just then, a classmate pointed at Judith's leg and yelled, "There's a huge bug on your leg. Is that a centipede?" Upon hearing this, our class monitor rushed over like a knight in shining armor, trying to rescue the damsel in distress by grabbing the bug, but when his hand touched the bug, he realized something was off. It wasn't a bug at all, just a sticky clump of mud. Confused, he even brought it up to his nose to take a sniff. Exactly, that was the mixture of plant ash from Judith's menstrual pad and period blood. Judith had been burning things because she'd run out of ash for her pad. With everything that happened afterward, she never had a chance to replace it, so she held out until it finally leaked. The class monitor had no idea what it was, but I was more than happy to enlighten him. Upon hearing this, the class monitor scurried away with a constipated look on his face. Judith had several suitors, but after she injured her leg muscles and could only walk with a limp, many of them backed off. Only the class monitor persisted. Everyone had been admiring the class monitor's loyalty, but now it seems this suitor is about to bow out too. However, everyone understood. After all, not everyone can put up with Judith's bizarre lifestyle habits. The lingering onlookers who hadn't dispersed yet felt lucky they'd stuck around, or they would have missed the real show. But the drama didn't end there. To everyone's shock, insects actually started crawling out of Judith's body. Baffled by the strange insects, people pulled out their phones to image search them. The results revealed they were lice, creatures most had only heard of in stories. That's when genuine fear set in, and the crowd quickly backed away. If that thing lands on someone else, it'll make a home on their body. Monica's computer broke down. Although Judith agreed to compensate her, the data inside was nearly impossible to recover. Fuming with pent-up frustration, Monica went all out with her sarcastic remarks. "Oh my, the last time I heard about someone getting lice was from my grandpa. You're always going on about how industrial products made after the founding of the nation are no good, and you refuse to use them. How fitting for you. Lice have become quite rare since then. You're so obsessed with following in the footsteps of the ancients, and now you've finally caught up with them." Upon hearing this, Judith lunged at Monica, but Monica, of course, dodged out of the way. She's become a walking disaster. Everyone who sees her is terrified. Eventually, the counselor ordered Judith to shave her head and arranged for dorm supervisors to clean our room and exterminate the pests. Since we couldn't stay in the dorm for a while, the school allowed us to commute until the end of the semester. Except for Judith, all four of us in the dorm were local residents, so we happily made plans to move back home. As for Judith, she's still holed up in the dorm. The saying, "when you're already covered in lice, a few more bites don't matter," fits her situation perfectly. Chapter 3. But after today's incident, even the dorm advisor is looking at Judith differently. Let's face it, not everyone can get past the mental hurdle of dealing with someone who has Judith's living habits. Judith herself felt utterly humiliated today and couldn't stop crying. But actually, what happened today might just spare her from having one or two more abortions. Every cloud has a silver lining. This might turn out to be a blessing in disguise for her. When the new semester starts, we'll be sophomores. Judith's shaved hair had grown to her earlobes, while it would take ages to regain her former flowing locks. At least her current hairstyle no longer looked alarming. It's as if Judith's memory got chopped off along with her hair. She actually carries on like nothing ever happened, but the student body hasn't forgotten. Everyone still remembers all those embarrassing incidents from last semester. Whenever people see Judith, they deliberately keep their distance, afraid of catching some parasite she might be carrying, and the male students, they steer clear of her like she's contagious, not one to sit idle. Judith had to look beyond campus for new ventures. She started a video channel online, sharing snippets of her all-natural daily life with followers every day. Having learned her lesson from last time, and determined to avoid shaving her head again, she wisely made her own natural shampoo using soap, berries, and ginger. She even filmed herself making plant ash menstrual pads, too wary to burn plant materials on campus again. She brought a large supply of ready-made ash from home after the break. Some netizens questioned why she would use plant ash instead of cotton for making homemade menstrual pads. She claimed cotton wasn't environmentally friendly enough. The netizens then challenged, "Is burning plant ash any more eco-friendly?" Judith didn't respond further and simply blocked the user. When Judith first started this account, people thought she was a craft blogger like Laziki, which helped her gain a small following. But as she shared more about her life philosophy, most of those followers drifted away. The ones who stayed were either waiting to see her fail or had ulterior motives. Judith's boyfriend was one of those followers, and he definitely fell into the ulterior motives category. Judith spent all day in the dorm video calling people, cooing darling with every other word. Later, she started staying out overnight more and more frequently. One day I spotted Judith's boyfriend downstairs, and to my surprise, it was someone I knew well, Lucas, her husband from a past life, who Would have thought these two would cross paths earlier in this lifetime. In this lifetime, Judith's notorious reputation from her past antics has made all the boys at our school keep their distance. That's why she hasn't had the chance to get pregnant yet. Don't you two want children of your own? Your opportunity is coming soon. Make sure you seize it. Judith's account only has about 30 followers left. 3 of them are actually fake accounts that Hannah, Monica, and I created specifically to watch her daily meltdowns, since none of us really want to talk to her in real life, but we're still curious about her drama. Her account gives us a perfect window into her world. The 3 of us are probably the last people who want her to stop posting. In her latest video, she started sharing her views on contraception, claiming rubber products are harmful and pills damage the body. When a netizen mentioned the historical use of animal intestines and fish bladders, she dismissed it as violating ethical principles. No one online could understand what ethical principles she was referring to. She went on and on, but the only method she actually endorsed was tracking her safe period, but just because she felt that way didn't mean her boyfriend was on the same page. I even calculated it for her. Just this month alone, she spent 2 nights out during her fertile window nearing winter break that year. I realized Judith hadn't hung her menstrual cloth to dry in the dorm for quite some time. The way she couldn't stand the smell of any meat told me she was pregnant. When the new semester started, Judith was back to her slender figure. Looks like she'd added another one to her abortion tally. Judith's health in this life is far worse than in her previous one. After all, the high fever left her with severe long-term complications. She often has a cough, can't tolerate any draft, and refuses to take the nutritional supplements the doctor recommended. And now, of all things, this very person has become obsessed with taking some obscure brand of health supplements. How obscure, you ask? So much so that you can't even find any information about this product online. The few posts that do pop up eventually get taken down for violating platform policies. The reason Judith is so hooked is that these supplements were recommended by her boyfriend, Lucas. According to Judith, the product is made purely from natural ingredient extracts, preserving 100% of the nutritional value. Just 1 spoonful a day is enough to provide all the essential nutrients and dietary fiber your body needs. It sounds like a total scam, but at least it probably won't kill you. The real issue is they don't just have one product. Every single one claims to provide all the nutrients your body needs daily, yet each product emphasizes different key ingredients. Anyone who's been to elementary school and heard the fable about the self-contradictory spear and shield can see the logical flaw in this product line. But Judith, completely swept up in the hype, thought differently. After hearing the pitch, her immediate reaction was, well then I should take a scoop of each. Let's not even get into whether health supplements actually work. Most people are just debating whether to take them before or after meals. But Judith, she treats the stuff like it's her actual meal. She kept promoting this product non-stop on her video channel, but this kind of promotion was flagged as a violation, and the content would get taken down almost immediately. So Judith set her sights on the rest of us in the dorm. Keep in mind, she usually wouldn't even give us the time of day. To see her go to such lengths just to sell her products, you'd have to tip your hat to her sheer adaptability. I obviously wasn't going to humor her, but Hannah and Monica, not wanting to seem rude, each bought a bottle from her. She even tried to convince Hannah and Monica to become distributors themselves, going on about bulk purchase discounts and wholesale pricing tiers. After just a few sentences, it clicked. This was clearly a pyramid scheme disguised as direct sales. So her boyfriend's so-called referral was just recruiting her into his downline. No wonder her boyfriend picked her out from all those accounts. At first, he probably just saw her as easy prey to scam, but then he realized Judith was not only good-looking but also a bit dim, perfect for his amusement. Holding the health supplements she bought from Judith for $300, Hannah asked me hesitantly, "There's no manufacturer's address on this, and I can't even look up the approval number. Could this stuff be lethal?" Chapter 4. I said, "Chances are, it's just filled with flour. It won't kill you, but I wouldn't recommend drinking it. You'd be better off making yourself some black sesame paste." Hannah replied, "With 300 yuan, I could buy so much black sesame paste. What were you thinking when you bought it?" Judith sounded so pitiful. She said her family was really upset about the compensation she paid us last time, and now they've stopped giving her monthly allowance. She has to earn money herself, but when she goes out for part-time jobs, people complain about her limp. It made me think, if I'd been more insistent about taking her to the hospital when she had that fever, maybe none of this would have happened. I said, "If you had insisted on taking her, you'd have ended up even worse off." Hannah looked confused. "If I'd taken her to the hospital in time, her leg might have been fine. Even if she didn't feel grateful, she wouldn't have resented me." Right, exactly. That's how any sensible person would see it. Hannah thinks so now, and so did my past self, but our sanity is irrelevant. The person in question, Judith, is anything but normal. Judith's direct selling business is thriving. Some people pity her, while others have genuinely fallen under her spell. This model simply means you earn commissions from purchases made by your downline, and even their recruits, sooner or later. It's bound to blow up, less than a year after Judith joined their organization. The ringleaders absconded with all the funds. Judith lost several $100,000, a significant portion of which came from high-interest online loans she had taken out. People she had recruited started demanding answers from her, but she was already in dire straits herself, fighting to stay afloat. On the bright side, since her involvement was brief and she wasn't a key member of the operation, she avoided being arrested and serving jail time. She had hoped to bury her head in the sand and pretend everything was fine, but when Judith's nude photos appeared in every corner of the school, her ostrich-like fantasy was shattered. With pyramid schemes, high-interest loans, and Judith's previous scandals piling up, the school ultimately expelled her. Judith's boyfriend Lucas, as a key member of that organization, was sentenced to 7 years in prison and ordered to return all illegal proceeds. Life at university without Judith was remarkably tranquil. I completed my undergraduate studies and went on to pursue a master's degree, though Judith and Lucas have faced their comeuppance and are doomed to miserable lives. Whenever I wake from nightmares of my past life, their treacherous faces during my murder still haunt me with lingering unease. As long as these two roam freely in this world, there's no guarantee they won't employ the same vicious methods from our previous life to harm me again. I asked around to find out how Judith has been doing these past few years, after dropping out. Judith worked odd jobs for a while. But these days, even able-bodied people struggle to find decent work, let alone someone with her noticeable limp. Judith was also incredibly picky, constantly complaining about jobs being too exhausting or the pay too low. Eventually, she just stopped showing up for work altogether. Her sister-in-law had had enough. Did Judith expect them to support her while she wasn't working? So her sister-in-law persuaded Judith's parents to marry her off as soon as possible. Given Judith's circumstances, there weren't many good families for her to choose from, especially with her sister-in-law eagerly waiting to collect the bride price. In the end, they settled on an abusive man for Judith. I heard that not long ago, Judith was beaten by her husband so badly that she miscarried. She just managed to get a divorce by threatening to send him to prison. I did the math, and Lucas is about to be released from prison. I hope these two get together soon, so I don't have to deal with them separately. Judith, that hopeless romantic, didn't disappoint. She reunited with Lucas and got involved with him again. One day, when they were on a date, I pretended to run into them by chance. Judith, is that you? It's been ages. How have you been all these years? I haven't heard anything about you in so long. Judith seemed a bit uncomfortable when she saw me, but she put on a brave face and started boasting. I started a small business later on, and it's worked out pretty well, much easier than being an office worker, and I earn at least as much as they do. Looking back, it's a good thing I didn't finish college, otherwise, I'd have wasted all that time just to end up making peanuts. I'm so envious of you, just looking at your glow. I can tell life's been treating you well, and the fact that you two have stayed together all these years is truly admirable. Judith thought I didn't know about her brief marriage and divorce, so she kept spinning her tale for me. I played along with her performance, using an admiring tone. Then I pretended that the company had a task and needed her to help me with a survey questionnaire. My earlier cooperation had greatly satisfied Judith's vanity, so she opened the questionnaire link I sent her right in front of me. I smiled and said goodbye to her, telling her we should keep in touch when we get the chance. After leaving, I opened the monitoring app on my phone and confirmed I could hear Judith's voice before closing it with relief. That's right, I tricked her with that survey. It was actually a Trojan program. Once she opened it, I could eavesdrop through her phone. After that, I ran into Judith and the others 2 more times later. By listening in on their conversations, I noticed Lucas was bringing me up more often around Judith. In our previous life, Lucas's accusation that I caused Judith's infertility was merely a pretext, an excuse for him to possess me. Whether Judith genuinely hated me or was just trying to gain Lucas's trust, they immediately joined forces and came at me with ruthless intent. In that lifetime, regardless of whether Lucas ultimately succeeded, neither of them would have let me live. This time around, I simply accelerated their plans. The difference is, now I've come fully prepared. Much like in the previous life, under Lucas's manipulative tactics, Judith once again became his accomplice. Chapter 5. This time, his excuse for manipulation was that Judith lacked formal education and had a physical disability. Judith never told Lucas about her marriage and divorce, otherwise he would have had one more reason to use against her. Judith mentioned her upcoming birthday and wanted to invite me over to their place. I turned the tables and invited her and Lucas to our home instead, saying I'd cook for them myself. From their conversations over the past few days, I've already figured out their plan. Just like in the previous timeline, Lucas will carry out the act while Judith keeps watch. The unfortunate part is they haven't mentioned what they plan to do with me afterward. Not to worry though, I have plenty of ways to make them talk. I've installed high-definition cameras covering every angle of the house without any blind spots. Any suspicious move they make against me will be captured in full detail. Sure enough, shortly after these two arrived, their true intentions for coming here were revealed. I roared, Judith, I actually considered you a close friend. How could you just stand by and let your boyfriend treat me like this? Judith maintained her detached demeanor. Joy, you're the one who brought me to this point. You're getting exactly what you deserve. Judith, how can you say something so utterly devoid of conscience? Did I force you to join a fraudulent organization? Did I make you take out high-interest loans? Every step that led you here, each one worse than the last, was taken by your own 2 feet. Let me make this clear. I won't let this go. Go ahead and kill me if you dare, but as long as I'm breathing, I'll make sure you rot in prison. Hearing this, Judith grew smug. Joy, do you really think you're walking out of here alive? Did you honestly believe I'd let you keep chasing after my man? I pretended to be terrified and pleaded with Lucas. I'll agree to anything you want. Whatever you ask, I'll do it. Just spare my life. Please, I swear I won't report you. Really? My words made Lucas waver. But Judith quickly cut in, shattering his hesitation. Don't fall for her lies. She's always been a smooth talker. No matter how sweet she sounds now, she'll turn you in the moment she gets the chance. Lucas suddenly snapped awake and slapped me. You bitch. How dare you lie to me? I'll make you pay for deceiving me today. He raised his hand to strike me again. Just then, noises came from the doorway and several people rushed in to restrain Lucas. These were the backup I'd arranged for myself. Seeing the critical moment had arrived, they naturally charged in to rescue me. Now that I knew what they intended to do to me, of course I wasn't going to just stand there and let them walk all over me. Judith and Lucas were quickly apprehended. Before being taken away, Judith glared at me resentfully and said, Joy, you set me up. I was furious. Judith, did I force you to try and destroy me? If protecting myself counts as setting someone up, then what does that make you? A venomous snake with a heart of stone, with eyewitness testimony and surveillance footage as evidence. Judith and Lucas were swiftly sentenced to life imprisonment. I attended the trial that day, and when I heard the verdict, I knew my nightmare had finally come to an end. The moment I stepped out of the courthouse, sunlight washed over me, enveloping my entire being. From that day forward, I've carried that light within me, growing toward the sun. Story 2. I turned off the video call with my mother-in-law and blocked her. Then I received a flood of messages from my husband and father-in-law, filled with all kinds of abusive words that were unbearable to read. I sneered and blocked them as well. They're on the verge of death, yet they still want to take their anger out on me. I opened the trending searches, and the top news was that the international hotel in City A had fallen. I watched the live footage from the drone, which just happened to capture a guest room being broken into by zombies. Those 3 familiar and detestable figures were surrounded and bitten by the zombies, and they fell out of the window. I felt a great sense of relief in my heart. In the last life, you caused my daughter to die a tragic death at the hands of zombies. Now it's time for you to taste the bitter fruit you sowed in the previous life. 01. The first day, I stared blankly at the date on my phone, unable to believe that I had been reborn. 7 days later, the zombie virus would break out, and the cities would fall one after another. Fortunately, in the last life, I had prepared some supplies in advance, and my family managed to hold out for a while. My husband, Xander, my father-in-law, Beau, and my mother-in-law, Vaughn, took it for granted to eat the food I had stocked up. They completely forgot how they had scolded me for being wasteful before. They said that I only knew how to spend money, bought things randomly, and called me a loser who couldn't make money. But I used my own salary to stock up on supplies. I carried bags of grains, oils, rice, and noodles up the stairs one by one. I didn't do this for them, but for my sweet and sensible daughter, Jasmine. I had no support from my natal family and suffered a lot of grievances in my husband's family, and my daughter was the only hope for me to live in this world. I thought that my daughter was in a period of rapid growth. In case of an epidemic outbreak and lockdown, my daughter's nutrition might not be sufficient, so when I heard the news of the spread of a new virus, I prepared some supplies in advance. 02. But no one expected it to be a terrifying zombie virus. At that time, I was used to being submissive and didn't dare to resist when they took over my supplies. Even when my daughter wanted to eat a small cookie, Vaughn snatched it away. I originally thought that as long as I endured in silence and waited until the rescue arrived, everything would be okay. I had been married into this family for 5 years, and I knew that they had always disliked me. Xander disliked my low education level and that I hadn't given birth to a son to carry on the family line. Vaughn and Beau disliked that I had only given birth to a daughter and thought of me as an outsider, but I never expected that they could be so vicious. One morning, I woke up from hunger and found that my daughter was gone. They told me that my daughter had run out of the house by herself in the middle of the night and was dragged away by the zombies in the corridor. I went crazy trying to go out and look for her, but Xander slapped me to the ground and said viciously, "If you run out now, you're going to get our whole family killed." Vaughn also stood by with her hands on her hips and chimed in, "A girl is gone, so what? Just have a son next time." I don't know if it was because of hunger or the beating, but I felt completely drained of strength, and my mind went blank. I only felt that the world was completely dark. I sat there for a whole day without eating or drinking, just staring blankly at my daughter's photo. On the day I gave birth, when Xander saw that the nurse had brought out a daughter, he left without Looking back, and even posted a message on his social media, "What bad luck, it's a daughter, I can't stand staying in this hospital for another minute." Vaughn even left me alone in the hospital and didn't take care of me during my confinement at all. 03 Late at night, I looked up at the window. The boundless darkness made the moon look poignant and lonely, and the terrifying roars echoed again and again in the empty street. I somehow found myself walking into Vaughn's room and quietly took her phone. Since it was an old-fashioned mobile phone, there was no lock screen. With a gentle swipe, I saw the Instagram chat interface that hadn't been closed yet. Family of 3. The number 3 was very eye-catching. Vaughn, thanks to these zombies, that little loser is finally gone. Xander, I didn't want that girl anyway. I wasted a whole day's effort in the hospital back then, and I didn't even bother to give her a name. Xander, I had been looking forward to it for 10 months, and all I got was a little loser. What bad luck. Beau, she always has such a gloomy face. It's really annoying to look at. Vaughn, we should have thrown her and that little loser out together last night. Xander, Mom, don't worry, now the network is back on, and I've received the news that the country has developed a zombie vaccine, and the army will come to rescue us soon. Xander, when this loser gives birth to a son in the future, I'll make her leave the house with nothing. 04 Looking at these cold words, I bit my lip tightly and trembled all over. I had been so obedient and submissive, so why couldn't they leave my daughter alone? Even tigers don't eat their cubs. They're worse than animals, these scumbags. I will make them pay with their lives. I opened the door and saw a teddy bear covered in blood lying alone at the door. There was also a small pink shoe, also covered in blood. Several zombies were chewing on something in the corridor at this moment. I couldn't control my emotions anymore. I roared at them. The roar attracted countless zombies. They rushed into the door one after another. Xander and Beau, who were awakened, stared at me in horror and rushed towards me, trying to close the door. Vaughn collapsed on the ground, and her pants were wet, but it was too late. Unfortunately, I was the first to be submerged in the tide of zombies. I didn't get to see them being torn apart with my own eyes. I held the small pink shoe tightly, and my consciousness gradually faded away in the pain. I was so unwilling. If I could have another life, I would definitely protect my daughter well and never let her be hurt again. 05 I looked at my daughter's lovely sleeping face beside me and wiped away my tears. Vaughn, as usual, pushed the door open without knocking and shouted meanly, "What time is it? Why haven't you gotten up to cook yet? You're sleeping like a pig. I spent 200,000 yuan on the betrothal gift to marry such a lazy and good-for-nothing loser like you." I didn't respond to her. Instead, I stared at her with red eyes. I really wanted to tear her apart right then and there. Vaughn was startled by my appearance and shivered. Then she cursed again. "Why are you crying so early in the morning? So annoying." Then she slammed the door shut and left, cursing. Mommy, my daughter beside me woke up at some point and called me timidly. The clear and tender voice of the child made me sober up a bit. I hugged her tightly and said, "Baby, Mommy is here." My daughter nestled into my arms, and I sighed. There were still 7 days left until the zombie outbreak, and it was still a society ruled by law. I couldn't act impulsively without considering the consequences. 06 I was just an ordinary clerk with a monthly salary of 3,000 yuan. I didn't have much savings, nor did I have any extra property. If I didn't have enough money, I would still have to share the same house with them on the day the apocalypse came. Just when I was at a loss, I happened to see a lottery shop in front of me. I suddenly remembered a post I had seen on a forum after the zombie outbreak in the last life. The person who posted said that he had just won the lottery for a little over a week, and before he could spend much of the money, the end of the world came. I just happened to remember the lottery numbers he had shown in the post. The lottery draw date was also tonight, so I immediately ran to the lottery shop and bought a ticket with the exact same numbers. I suppressed my excitement and returned home as usual, while they were sitting on the sofa, munching on melon seeds and laughing heartily while watching TV. I silently swept the floor, mopped the floor, did the laundry, and cooked as usual. After cleaning up their leftovers, I silently washed the dishes in the kitchen. Finally, it was 8 o'clock. I took out my phone and checked the winning numbers. Sure enough, they were exactly the same. This also meant that what happened in the last life had indeed taken place. 07 The next day, after sending my daughter to kindergarten, I asked for leave from the company. I disguised myself and went to the lottery center to claim the 10 million yuan prize. After deducting the tax, I deposited the remaining 8 million yuan into a new card. I held the bank card excitedly and thought about how to plan this money. In my memory of the last life, the zombie virus wouldn't infect animals or plants. Only those who were bitten by zombies would be infected. And the zombies were just ordinary walking corpses without much destructive power. However, if there were too many zombies, ordinary obstacles could easily be destroyed. The official news also reminded that as long as one didn't make too much noise, they wouldn't attract the zombies to gather. Moreover, before I died in the last life, the zombie vaccine had already been developed, and the army would come to the rescue. I believed in the power of the country, which would surely be able to rebuild social order and restore people's normal lives. I had to find a way for my daughter and myself to spend these 3 months safely and comfortably. At present, the first thing I needed to do was to find a suitable place to live. It had to be a place where we could safely survive the zombie crisis and also meet our future living needs. Fortunately, I lived in an ordinary small city, and the housing prices were not very expensive. The housing prices in ordinary residential areas were relatively cheap, but they were too easy to fall during the zombie outbreak, even if the zombies couldn't break through the doors of the houses. The corridors and elevators would be filled with zombies. Even if there were airdrop supplies, many residents wouldn't be able to go out to find supplies once their own supplies were exhausted. However, high-end residential areas had sturdy gates and walls, which could isolate the zombies outside the community. Even if there were zombies inside, the security forces could easily eliminate them. I remembered that in the last life, some wealthy people in high-end residential areas even had the mood to post Versailles-style videos on social media during the apocalypse. There was a beautifully dressed noblewoman who led her pet dog and slowly went downstairs to get the supplies. She even complained that she could only eat ordinary beef now and couldn't get the air-flown seafood. At that time, many people couldn't even get a single strand of noodles. I could only sigh that the rich and the poor really had different fates. Even in the apocalypse, the wealthy and powerful could live more comfortably than ordinary people, while the poor could only leave their lives to fate. 08. I took the 8 million yuan and went to the sales office of a nearby high-end residential area. The sales office was in an independent building at the entrance of the community, and the decoration was very grand, perhaps because I was dressed plainly and didn't drive there. The several salesgirls in the reception hall were not very enthusiastic and didn't immediately receive me when I entered. It was not until I walked up to them that one of the salesgirls asked perfunctorily, "Madam, are you here to buy a house? The housing prices here are very expensive." I ignored her rudeness and directly asked, "Is there a fully furnished ready-to-move-in house available? The higher the floor, the better." Another salesgirl secretly rolled her eyes and impatiently flicked her hair, saying, "Currently, there is a penthouse duplex with a terrace. It's a one-elevator, one-house unit, 200 square meters. It has a children's room, a study, a utility room, and a master bedroom with a walk-in closet, but the down payment for this house is 1 million yuan. When I heard about the master bedroom with a walk-in closet, I was a bit tempted. Whether in my natal family or my current husband's family, I had never been able to have a room of my own. In my natal family's house, the only secondary bedroom was given to my brother, and I could only sleep on a small bed placed in the corner of the living room. The only thing that separated me from the rest of the room was a curtain. In my husband's family, I had to endure the loud snoring and could hardly fall asleep every day. I had always longed to be like those favored girls, having a beautiful walk-in closet, a magnificent dressing table, and a bright and spacious bedroom. I also wanted to give my daughter a dreamy princess room so that she could have a carefree childhood. In order to avoid a series of troubles such as loan procedures or having to pay off the mortgage to the bank after the social order was restored, I turned to the supervisor and said, "I want the penthouse duplex with a terrace. I'll pay in full." Also, the attitudes of those salesgirls just now were a bit inappropriate. "I want to change to another salesperson to sign the contract." The supervisor immediately smiled apologetically and said, "We're very sorry. It's our fault for not providing good service. I'll arrange it for you right away." Then he loudly scolded the salesgirls whose faces had turned pale. "Hurry up and apologize to the customer." I didn't want to waste time dealing with this matter. I readily signed the contract with another salesperson, and the new salesperson led me to see my new house with a beaming smile. 09. I held the key to my new house and walked towards the house with the best location. Then I saw that familiar face at the gate downstairs. The person who had appeared in my dreams countless times. I instinctively wanted to run away, but a hand grabbed me. "Is that you, Delilah?" That voice was still as deep and gentle as before. With a hint of trembling, I held back my tears and let out a soft and slowly turned my head. He was wearing a neat suit, and his figure looked tall and slender. His face was as sharply contoured as if carved, and compared to the sunny and cheerful young men in my memory, he had a more determined edge. He was my first love, Bennett, the regret that I could never have. Compared to him, I felt a bit embarrassed. The shiny glass reflected my somewhat haggard face. I didn't know what to say, so I could only lower my head silently. "I've been looking for you." His voice was a bit choked. In fact, I knew that, but I had always avoided his contact. I didn't have the courage to look into his eyes, just like I didn't have the courage to face my parents' coercion back then. 10. At that time, we were both very poor. My parents beat him out of the house with a stick because he couldn't afford the betrothal gift that satisfied them at that time. They threatened me with death, saying that if I went with him, they would kill him and then drag me down to jump with them. I could only stay in the house and listen to his desperate knocking on the door until it disappeared. I could only cry and send him a breakup text message, blocking all his contact information. In order to buy a house for my good-for-nothing brother, they needed a betrothal gift of 200,000 yuan. Since I was somewhat good-looking, my current husband's family bought me with this 200,000 yuan betrothal gift. I didn't even ask my parents who the other party was, since it wasn't him. I didn't care who I married. From then on, there was no more light in my life, and I thought that this was how my life would be later. My daughter was born, and I had another reason to live until the zombie crisis broke out, and they killed my daughter. In the last life, I died together with them, and I never got to see my first love again before I died. Perhaps I was too miserable in the last life, or perhaps God took pity on me and wanted to compensate me, so I met him again after being reborn. 11. I'm already married and have a daughter. My voice was a bit hoarse. He was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were filled with redness. I'm sorry. It was my fault back then. I was useless. He gently hugged me into his arms. Now I have money. All the grievances burst out at that moment, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I hugged him and burst into tears. I know this sounds absurd, but all of this is true. I still remember the excruciating pain of being bitten by the zombies clearly. It was like my heart was being torn apart. I originally didn't want to tell anyone that I had been reborn. I just wanted to live a peaceful life with my daughter, but I was afraid that he would also suffer that kind of pain. He was silent for a long time, and his eyes were bloodshot. After a while, he finally spoke and said, I'm sorry to me again. It's all my fault. I should have taken you away. Back then, he told me that because of that incident, he had gone to a foreign place alone to develop, hoping to earn enough money and then come back to find me. But when he came back, my family was no longer there. He tried all kinds of ways to contact me, but there was no response. I was crying so hard that I could barely breathe. I managed to stop my tears and murmured, so many years have passed. You must be married by now, right? It's not the time to be sentimental now. You also need to make some preparations to take good care of your wife and children. He was stunned, and then said in a muffled voice, I'm still single. I was speechless. I didn't want to look into his eyes and made an excuse to pick up my daughter and fled from there. I spent another night as usual. I forced myself not to think too much. I told myself that there were still many things to prepare and fell asleep amidst a jumble of thoughts. 12. The third day, I summoned up my courage and walked into that community, praying that I wouldn't meet him today. I looked around nervously and almost got caught by the security guards as a suspicious person and questioned. It was only when I showed my door key that the security guards apologized. I made sure that the person wasn't around and then walked to the elevator door. I started to study how to use the elevator card. I was still looking down at the magnetic card in my hand when a slightly cold hand swept past my ear and pointed at the elevator's sensing area. A clear and cold voice came from above my head. Swipe it here. The voice was accompanied by warm breath that blew on my hair, making the top of my head itch. The place where my earlobe was touched felt a bit hot. I obediently followed his words. It was only when the elevator door closed that I realized what had happened. He clearly wasn't there just now. When did he come in? I looked at my ears, which were as red as blood. In the elevator mirror, my gaze moved upward and just met his eyes. He spoke. First, you ran away pretty fast yesterday. I didn't dare to answer. The elevator arrived at the top floor very quickly. I immediately flashed inside, and he followed me in. I was speechless and said somewhat pithily, Bennett, don't you know that the end of the world is coming soon? Why aren't you stockpiling supplies? Delilah. He wasn't willing to back down either. Although I was the first to call him by his full name, I didn't know why. But when I heard him call me by my full name, I felt extremely wronged. We stared at each other at the door, neither of us paying attention to the other. It was as if we had gone back to the past, when we occasionally had conflicts. We were like this, but in the end, it was always him who gave in first and then patiently coaxed me until he made me laugh. After a while, I heard him sigh and say seriously, Delilah, I'm a man. How do I know anything about stockpiling supplies? You have more experience than me, so you have to teach me. I was even more speechless, but I also felt a little disappointed. I thought what he said made sense, seeing that I was a bit relaxed. He pushed his luck even further. Do you have a car? No. Then can you drive? I'll buy my own car and get my own driver's license. It's only a few days left. Are you some kind of prodigy who can learn to drive in a few days? I want to stockpile supplies. What does that have to do with driving, if you don't drive? Are you going to carry the supplies back one by taking the bus? Then I'll call a Didi. Okay, then I'll register for a Didi account, then I'll order takeout. Wait a moment, after I register for a Didi account, I'll also register as a Mate 1 delivery rider. All done. So, MS, Delilah, do you want to call a Didi, order takeout, or take my car? I couldn't help but be by him, a free laborer. It would be a waste not to use him. 13. He drove a black sedan and stopped in front of me. I recognized the logo on the front of the car. It was a Mercedes-Benz. He opened the car door and walked over, casually saying, I bought it outright. There's no car loan. After a pause, he added, and there's no mortgage either. I didn't want to pay attention to him and walked straight to the back seat and opened the car door. A hand stopped my action. He opened the door of the passenger seat and said, sit in the front. Leave the passenger seat for your future wife. It's not appropriate for me to sit there, this time. It was his turn to be speechless. He pulled me into the passenger seat despite my opposition and said, "Sit in the front, it's easier to talk." After that, he even helped me fasten my seatbelt. When he got close to me, there was a faint scent of cologne on him, which smelled very good. I have to say that the interior of this car was spacious. The soft leather sofa fit snugly against my back, and it was very comfortable after the zombie crisis is over. I'll also get a car like this. 14. The two of us went to a large shopping mall. After getting out of the car, we went straight to the supermarket. I suggested that we split up and he buy his supplies while I buy mine, but he unilaterally vetoed it. He said that he would buy whatever I bought and just get 2 portions. I couldn't persuade him, so I pushed the shopping cart in my hand towards him. He naturally took it and pushed the cart behind me. My plan was to prepare supplies for half a year at once. Although the zombie vaccine would be developed in 3 months, it was better to stockpile more just in case. That's what I thought, but when I saw the dazzling array of goods, I was overwhelmed and didn't know where to start choosing. He and I walked around aimlessly, like a couple of old married people taking a stroll. I walked in front, and whenever I saw something I wanted to eat, I would take 2 portions and throw them into the shopping cart. He pushed the increasingly full shopping cart and walked behind me. When we reached the snack section, he picked up a bar of Dove chocolate and said, "Do you want to get more of this? I remember you used to like it." I looked at the chocolate in his hand and was immediately lost in memories. During the time we were together, because we were poor, we would occasionally buy a snack and share it when we wanted to eat something. After I finished my portion, I would look at his portion longingly. Every time he saw me like that, he would pretend to frown and say, "This doesn't suit my taste, baby, help me eat it." Then he would stuff his portion into my hand and let me eat it all. Thinking of this, my nose twitched. When he saw that I wasn't feeling well, he asked me nervously if I was feeling unwell. I shook my head and wiped away a tear, saying, "I suddenly feel like crying when I think about the last period of my previous life when I only ate plain noodles and nothing else. In the early days of the zombie virus outbreak in the previous life, we could still eat some fresh vegetables. Later, as the supplies gradually decreased, Vaughn, using the excuse that the elderly couldn't be hungry and the head of the family couldn't be weak, only allowed my daughter and me to eat plain noodles, while they had meat and oil in every meal. One night, I was so hungry that I opened the refrigerator and saw the last bag of dumplings left. I thought I would cook them and share them the next day, but when I woke up, I only saw the empty packaging bag on the kitchen floor. Then I saw 3 figures on the balcony, secretly eating something. I was so heartbroken, but I didn't dare to say anything and could only endure it silently. 15. By the time the shopping cart was full, we had been wandering around for over an hour. The supplies we had selected were far from the planned quantity. If we transported them back and forth like this, we wouldn't be able to buy all the supplies before the zombie virus outbreak. So we decided to give up this inefficient way and directly found the supermarket manager and made a list: 30 bags of rice, 30 bags of flour, 30 barrels of cooking oil, 1 box each of salt, sugar, vinegar, soy sauce, and other seasonings, 20 boxes of instant noodles, 20 boxes of self-heating rice, 20 boxes of self-heating hot pots, 100 bags each of biscuits, potato chips, chocolate, bread, nuts, dried meat, and fruit candies, 30 boxes of mineral water, 10 boxes of Coke, 10 boxes of Sprite, 10 boxes of juice, 30 boxes of toothpaste, 30 boxes of soap, 20 bottles of shower gel, 20 bottles of shampoo, 10 bottles of dishwashing liquid, 10 bottles of laundry detergent, 20 bottles of disinfectant, 50 gin of beef, 50 gin of pork, 30 gin of fish and shrimp, 30 chickens and ducks, 20 bags each of frozen dumplings, frozen buns, and frozen scallion pancakes. Ordering so many things at once inevitably made people suspicious. The supermarket manager required us to pay the full amount of the order in advance. We made some excuses, explaining that the company was going to hold an activity for employees and distribute benefits, and asked him to order 2 large freezers in the electrical appliances section and have them delivered to our house together. We also promised to give him a tip later. Seeing that we settled all the payments on the spot, the supermarket manager didn't say anything more and told us that the goods could be delivered to our house in the afternoon. I gave Bennett a key to my house and told him that I had something very important to deal with and asked him to move my share of the supplies to the storage room of the house. I also said that I would transfer half of the money to him later. He didn't ask too many questions and took the key, saying, "Delilah, no matter what you're going to do, I will support you." 16. I went to a travel agency and bought 3 travel vouchers for City A. Then I posted an Instagram moments that was only visible to those 3 people. "I'm so lucky. I won 3 travel vouchers in a lottery. I can take my baby to City A tomorrow." During dinner, the 3 of them winked at each other at the dining table and were calculating in their hearts. Vaughn desperately winked at me, but I pretended not to see and picked up some food for my daughter. Seeing that I didn't respond, Vaughn looked angrily at Xander. Xander coughed and said, "Delilah, give me your travel vouchers. I'll take our parents out for a trip." I knew that with their selfish and thick-skinned nature, they would definitely be tempted by these 3 travel vouchers. Of course, I wasn't so kind as to really let them go on a trip. I knew that Vaughn's birthday was in 10 days. In the previous life, Xander, that mama's boy, had originally planned to take annual leave and go on a family trip. Of course, he only planned to take his parents and didn't plan to take me and my daughter, the two outsiders. I deliberately pretended to be in a difficult situation and said, "But Jasmine has never been on a long trip before. This is a rare opportunity to win the lottery, and I want to take her out for a trip." Xander raised his voice and his expression became impatient. "What do you mean by but? Our mom's going to be 50 soon. What's wrong with you using the travel vouchers to show your filial piety to her?" It was really ridiculous. How could he ask for my travel vouchers in the name of being filial to his mom? You've been married into our family for several years and haven't given birth to a son. You just want to enjoy yourself all day long. Beau also added fuel to the fire. Vaughn angrily threw down her chopsticks, and the wrinkles on her face almost squeezed her facial features together. "As a daughter-in-law, you don't show filial piety to your in-laws. My son works so hard to support the family and only has a few days of rest. You don't know how to be considerate either." I watched the three of them singing in unison and didn't want to play along with them anymore. I put the travel vouchers on the table. Vaughn took the travel vouchers triumphantly and said, "My son is still filial. After all, an outsider can't be counted on. Mom, let Delilah pack our luggage. We'll set off tomorrow. I'll definitely throw you a grand 50th birthday party." I sneered in my heart. "A 50th birthday? I'll make you die at 49. After packing their going on a trip luggage, I secretly put a little gift in the suitcase. 17. The fourth day, early in the morning, they dragged their suitcases and went out. After sending my daughter to kindergarten, I went back home to pack some personal belongings and some documents, and then immediately rushed to my new house. From today on, I could live in the new house with my daughter without any scruples. I wasn't worried at all that those three scumbags would contact me. They would even hide from me when they ate something good, let alone share any travel experiences with me without them getting in the way. It was more convenient for me to prepare the new house. The decoration of the new house was in a light luxury style, and the furniture and electrical appliances were all very complete. There was a flower bed on the terrace, and I planned to grow some vegetables there because fresh vegetables couldn't be stored for a long time. I went to the storage room to check the supplies from yesterday and was surprised to find that Bennett hadn't taken his half of the supplies. Just as I was wondering, the door of the entrance hall was opened, and Bennett dragged his suitcase in. I crossed my arms and gave him a look that said, "What are you doing?" He said without blushing, "I'm scared to live alone." He also said that he had improved his cooking skills after being single for many years and had actively exercised and practiced sanda in his spare time. He could not only be presentable in social situations but also cook well. With a driver and laborer already, and now a free cook and bodyguard, I might as well make use of him given the urgent time. After checking the new house, Bennett and I went out. We first found a construction team and gave them a generous reward to replace the door of the new house with a bank vault level anti-theft door, the kind that couldn't be blown up by a bomb. Within the day, the other windows were also replaced with bulletproof materials and double reinforced. We installed a water circulation device and a solar power supply system on the terrace to prevent water and power outages, and also installed protective nets around it. We also gave the foreman an extra sum of money and asked him to replace the security doors of the fire escapes on my floor and the floor below with anti-theft doors. Since Bennett's house was just below mine, we didn't have to worry about other homeowners coming to our door. Before the construction team left, I ordered several very sturdy locks from them and asked them to deliver them as soon as possible. After everything was ready, Bennett and I went out for the second purchase. This time, the purchase was mainly for some clothes, bedding, and other items. I walked in front, and whenever I saw something suitable, I directly asked the clerk to pack it without looking at the price. Bennett followed behind, carrying full shopping bags and swiping his card to pay. People who didn't know might think that I was a mistress being supported by a wealthy boss. In addition, I also bought a lot of children's books and toys. Although the zombie crisis was coming, my child's education couldn't be neglected. After that, we also went to the pharmacy and bought a batch of medicines, including all kinds, anti-inflammatory drugs, cold medicines, stomach medicines, vitamins. We only stopped when the trunk, back seat, and passenger seat of the Mercedes-Benz were all filled with things. Since there was no room for people to sit, Bennett had to drive back first, and I went to pick up my daughter from kindergarten alone. When I arrived at the kindergarten, Jasmine had already packed her things and was sitting quietly on the chair waiting for me, because she had been neglected by her biological father, grandparents since she was a child. She was more well-behaved and sensible than children of the same age. When Jasmine saw me coming, she ran towards me happily and said, "Mommy, baby, be good. How was your performance in kindergarten today?" Jasmine was rewarded with a little red flower by the teacher. "Look, Mommy, Jasmine is so great. Mommy has prepared a gift for you as a reward today." "Thank you, Mommy. No matter what gift Mommy prepares, Jasmine will like it." Jasmine looked at me with her big eyes Full of anticipation, thinking of the scene in the previous life where such a lovely daughter was thrown out to be eaten by zombies, my heart ached. These three scumbags, I won't let them have a good time for long. After all, in the previous life, City A was the first city to fall during the zombie crisis and was also the city with the most serious situation. 18. When we got back to the new house, as soon as we entered, we could smell the aroma of the food Bennett, wearing an apron, was coming out of the kitchen with a plate of braised pork. I was a bit stunned and forgot to explain the situation to my daughter. My daughter looked at Bennett curiously and then at me. Jasmine, this is our new home, and this person is, hello, Jasmine, I'm Bennett's father, the nanny your mother hired. I'll be living with you from now on. Please take care of me, Bennett answered confidently before I could find the right words, and he even winked at me. Humph, a man's words can't be trusted. Hello. Bennett's father, the braised pork you made smells so delicious. Jasmine, a little glutton, was attracted by the smell and broke free from my hand to join the enemy. I glared at Bennett angrily, seeing that his food trick had worked. He gave me an innocent smile again and said, Jasmine is such a polite and good child. Uncle also specially baked some cookies for Jasmine. Your mother doesn't seem very hungry. Jasmine, come and try them with me first. Really, Jasmine loves cookies the most. Thank you, Bennett's father. The two of them got familiar with each other on their own. Completely ignoring me, the mistress of this new house, I looked at their backs resentfully, but my stomach growled disobediently. In the end, I couldn't resist and joined them for the meal. Seeing Bennett and Jasmine interacting happily at the dining table, I suddenly felt a bit relieved. Jasmine hadn't been this lively for a long time. After dinner, we were all a bit tired from a busy day. Bennett said good night and went to the guest room to rest. I took Jasmine for a tour of the new house. When we saw the princess room filled with toys, Jasmine kissed me several times on the face, and then happily lay on the huge fluffy teddy bear and played. The master bedroom had also been neatly tidied up by Bennett. I suppressed the warmth welling up in my heart. I repeatedly edited the words goodnight on Instagram, deleting and retyping them, but in the end, I still didn't send them. I lay down and fell into a deep sleep. Day 5. Bennett and I purchased some more vegetables and fruits that were easy to store, as well as seeds, and started to study how to grow vegetables in the flower bed. We also added an enclosed glass cage on the terrace and raised some button quails. Button quails make little noise and are not likely to attract the attention of zombies. Even if the common eggs run out, we can still eat fresh button quail eggs. Day 6. Bennett suggested that we exchange the remaining money for gold. After all, no one knows whether money will become worthless in the future, but gold has always been a hard currency in civilized times. To avoid arousing suspicion, after exchanging a portion of the money at the bank, we went to a jewelry store and bought some gold ornaments. Bennett went to the toilet in the middle. When he came back, there seemed to be something extra in his upper pocket, which was bulging. In the evening, I called my parents and my brother to remind them to prepare some supplies and not to go out the day after tomorrow. I didn't say much more. After all, they were my blood relatives, and I was just fulfilling my duty. As for whether they would listen to me, I didn't really care. Bennett's parents passed away early, and he didn't have any other relatives, so he didn't have such concerns. Day 7. I asked for leave from my daughter's kindergarten teacher and checked with Bennett again whether the defense facilities were complete. Almost at 12 o'clock at night, I took out the locks that I had previously ordered from the construction team and prepared to lock several gates of the community. I wasn't doing this out of kindness. If there were too many zombies in this community, we wouldn't be able to live in peace even on the top floor. Trying to isolate the zombies outside the community as much as possible could avoid a lot of trouble and accidents. Bennett also wanted to go with me to lock the gates. I stood with my hands on my hips and said to him seriously, Bennett, have you ever thought that if what I said is all false, this could be an offense against public order, and we could be detained? Bennett propped up his chin and thought for a while, then he replied solemnly, if nothing happens tomorrow, I'll take the blame for you, but if I can't find a job and can't afford to eat after I get out of prison, then you have to take me in. Delilah. I turned my head to hold back my laughter and muttered softly, in a voice he couldn't hear, if you go to prison and have a criminal record, how will your children be able to take the civil service examination in the future? After that, we bribed the security guards of the community. Although the security captain looked reluctant, lured by so much money, he acquiesced to our actions and said that they would find someone to remove the locks at 9 o'clock the next day. After locking the gates, we went back, and by the way, locked the unit door. When we got home, we locked all the outside doors tightly. After doing all this, I finally let out a sigh of relief. When I returned to the room, I opened my phone and coldly looked at the Moments posts by Xander and Vaughn, which were pictures of the delicious food in City A. Everything was coming to an end in this life. I want to live well. Day 8, 8 o'clock in the morning, I was on the terrace, looking at the situation at the gate with a telescope. More and more residents couldn't get out because the gate was locked, and they started to scold the security guards. A bald middle-aged man grabbed the collar of the security captain and Shouted angrily, I have an order worth tens of millions. If I miss my flight, who will compensate me? Let me out right away, or I'll sue you. The security captain had no choice but to call me, Madam, we can't hold off until 9 o'clock. Please come down and unlock the gate quickly. Before he could finish speaking, there was a sudden scream on the other end of the phone. Help, they're eating people. A woman covered in blood was lying on the gate of the community, holding the railing tightly with her hands and begging the people inside to save her. I saw from the telescope that this woman was exactly the snobbish saleswoman from before. Before she could finish speaking, a zombie pounced on her and bit off her neck in one bite. The bald man, who had been losing his temper just now, was splashed with blood and staggered to the ground. The zombie bared its teeth at the people inside the gate across the railing. Almost everyone was scared silly by the scene in front of them. I quickly replied to the security captain, hurry up and evacuate the crowd and let them all go home, although the security captain was also very scared. After all, he had been in the army, and he immediately took action. Fortunately, the gate was already locked, and the residents obediently went home. No one in this community was infected. I hung up the phone and waited quietly for a while. Sure enough, Vaughn made an Instagram video call. They were in the hotel room at the moment. Vaughn in the video looked very embarrassed, with a bruise on her face, and Xander and Beau's clothes were also a bit tattered. As soon as Vaughn saw that I answered the video call, she started to curse, you unlucky jinx, if it weren't for your travel vouchers, we wouldn't have come here. This damn place is full of crazy people who bite others. Vaughn, how can you blame me? But I also want to thank you. I was originally going to take Jasmine to City A. Thanks to the three of you for taking the hit for us, I said. When I said this, Vaughn was furious and started to curse me loudly. I thought the effect wasn't enough, so I added fuel to the fire and said, Xander, you can just go on your way with your parents in peace. I'll take good care of your inheritance, and our daughter will change her surname to Jasmine. Your Joe family will be completely without an heir in the future. When Xander heard this, he lost his mind, snatched the phone, and shouted at me, don't think that you two losers can survive. These monsters will bite you to death sooner or later. Xander, you don't have to worry about the safety of me and Jasmine. I won the lottery and now I'm lying in a luxury house, feeling very comfortable, I said. After hearing this, they finally noticed that the background behind me wasn't that small shabby house, and then they cursed even more fiercely, as their voices got louder and louder. There were also messy pounding sounds coming from outside the hotel room door. Beau quickly rushed over and slapped Vaughn and Xander, covering their mouths. You two idiots, those monsters heard you. I watched this farce and couldn't help laughing. Vaughn, didn't you say you were going to have your 50th birthday, as your daughter-in-law? I have a nice gift for you. After saying that, I pressed the button of a controller. A piercing alarm sounded from their suitcase. Attracted by the sound, the roars outside the door also became louder and louder. The three of them were terrified. Xander quickly went to search for the alarm, but unfortunately, I had packed the luggage, and he couldn't find it after searching for a long time. And Vaughn still didn't change her ways and cursed at me. You bitch, Delilah, turn that thing off quickly. I thought they were too noisy and I had had enough fun, so I turned off the Instagram video call with Vaughn and blocked her. Then I received a flood of messages from Xander and Beau, filled with all kinds of abusive words that were unbearable to read. I sneered and blocked them as well. They're on the verge of death, yet they still want to take their anger out on me. I opened the trending searches, and the top news was that the International Hotel in City A had fallen. I watched the live footage from the drone, which just happened to capture a guest room being broken into by zombies. Those three familiar and detestable figures were surrounded and bitten by the zombies, and they fell out of the window. I felt a great sense of relief in my heart. Everything was finally over. The people who had killed my daughter in the previous life had finally received their due punishment. I stretched, scattered a handful of feed for the button quails, and took care of the newly grown vegetable seedlings. Bennett brought breakfast to the terrace. Seeing that I was in a good mood, he also guessed the reason. He didn't ask any more questions and silently had breakfast with me at the small table. The outside world had fallen into chaos, with screams, cries, and police sirens everywhere on the streets. We're not saints, we're just ordinary people, and we can't save everyone. All we can do is to protect our own small family. After all, locking the gates of the community wouldn't be understood before the zombies appeared, let alone telling everyone that the end of the world was coming before that. If we publicized it, we might even be arrested for spreading rumors. Protecting this community was all we could do, and I also believe that the country will never give up on its people no matter what the situation is. In the previous life, despite the lack of supplies, so many families were able to hold on until the zombie vaccine was developed, precisely because the National Army had been airdropping supplies to help ordinary people. All we need to do now is to stay in this house properly until the day of rescue arrives. After comforting myself, I looked at Bennett without saying a word. Seemingly sensing my unease, he gave me a firm smile. Delilah, don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I'll stay by Your side. After that, life was very ordinary. We had an abundant supply of goods and didn't need to go out at all. The food Bennett cooked tasted really good, and he would also make some baked desserts for us from time to time. After getting along for a period of time, Jasmine became more cheerful. Sometimes she wouldn't even come to play with me but instead pestered Bennett to tell her stories. One night, we were having a hot pot in the living room, and Bennett was busy preparing the ingredients in the kitchen. Jasmine tugged at my hand and coquettishly said, "Mom, I think Bennett's father is a really nice person. Can we keep living with him?" This little girl was really smart for her age. Seeing that Bennett had gone into the kitchen, I said to her seriously, "Jasmine, don't be naughty. Bennett's father will have his own life in the future. When the monsters outside are gone, Bennett's father will have to go back to his own home. You can't keep bothering him, understand?" "You're so stingy, Mom. I'm ignoring you." Jasmine pouted and turned her back to me angrily. Just as I finished speaking, I saw Bennett standing at the kitchen door with a burning gaze. I lowered my eyes and looked at the boiling soup in the pot. The only sound in the air was the gurgling of the bubbles. No one spoke for a minute. Finally, Bennett broke the silence. His voice was a bit low. "Jasmine, you can't be angry with your mother. You have to be a good girl." Then he turned around and went back to the kitchen. I raised my head and only caught a glimpse of the gloomy look that flashed across his face when he turned around. Jasmine responded injuredly and continued to eat the mutton slices in her bowl. In fact, I wasn't unaware of Bennett's feelings, but I could only pretend to be ignorant. I had thought of him countless nights in the past, tossing and turning and unable to fall asleep, but I was already married, and he had a bright future ahead of him. We were already a thing of the past, a regret. There shouldn't be any more interaction between him and me. I hoped to see him and hoped that he would have a good life. However, I didn't want to hold him back. Days passed by one, and we tacitly didn't mention that matter. Life remained as ordinary as before. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed, and the weather gradually became cooler. Since there was no weather forecast now, I didn't notice the subtle changes in temperature. One noon, I was sunbathing on the terrace and accidentally fell asleep. Suddenly, I was awakened by a cold wind. I sneezed and quickly went back into the house, but I still caught a cold. Unfortunately, the illness came on fiercely. The cold turned into a bad cold, and I had a high fever and fainted on the ground. I fell into a coma and had a very long dream. In the dream, Bennett was fully armed and shuttling through the streets full of zombies with several other people in the same gear. He was holding a list in his hand and seemed to be looking for something. They cleared away a lot of zombies along the way and checked each floor of the community one by one, rescuing many trapped families, until they came to a building that I was very familiar with. Bennett looked at the list in his hand and was a bit excited. When he cleared the zombies on the lower floors and reached the 5th floor, he saw that the door of the household on the list was wide open, and he instantly became devastated. A female zombie whose abdomen was almost bitten through turned around slowly when she heard the movement outside the door. Although her face was already broken, I could still recognize that person. That zombie was exactly me. Bennett took off his helmet tremblingly, and his eyes gradually became despairing. He softly called out, "Delilah." The me who had become a zombie reacted and shakily pounced towards him. I screamed and shouted for Bennett to get out of the way, but he seemed unable to see or hear me. Bennett didn't dodge. Instead, he opened his arms and hugged the zombie, allowing her to bite his neck. When I dreamed of this, I couldn't hold back my sobs any longer. In a half-awake and half-asleep state, I seemed to hear a familiar voice calling me. I struggled to wake up and found myself lying on the bed with an ice towel on my head. Bennett looked a bit tired. He was resting his head on his hand by the bedside and still mumbling my name, seemingly sensing my movement. He raised his head and asked with concern, "Do you feel any better? You had a high fever and slept in a coma for 2 days. Your temperature just dropped." Before he could finish speaking, I threw myself into his arms. At this moment, I didn't want to care about anything anymore. I just hugged him tightly and said, "Bennett, don't leave me." He responded to my hug and gently left a kiss on my forehead. "It's okay. This time, I'll never be separated from you again." 3 months later, a large number of helicopters and armored vehicles arrived in our city in a mighty manner. The huge loudspeakers conveyed the exciting news to all the citizens. Our country has successfully developed a zombie virus vaccine and is currently mass-producing it. Those terrifying walking corpses fell one after another under the powerful firepower. Fully armed soldiers and medical staff were searching from house to house for survivors. The residents of the community shouted in unison by the windows, "Long live the motherland! Long live the motherland!" Bennett and I stood on the terrace and watched all this. We couldn't help but join the cheering crowd. After that night, I also opened my heart, accepted him, and accepted myself. Some things in the past had become regrets, and I couldn't change them, but God had given me a chance to be reborn, and I couldn't be too greedy. The future is long, and I should cherish the person in front of me. I took Bennett's hand initiatively and said, "Today is really a good day. It's the 100th day since we reunited, and the zombie crisis has been lifted. Bennett, how about we regard today as our Anniversary from now on, Bennett looked at me tenderly and said, "It's indeed a day worth commemorating." After saying that, he suddenly knelt down on one knee and took out a small square box from his upper pocket. He opened the box, and a diamond ring sparkled in the sunlight. "Miss Delilah, would you like to spend the rest of your life with me?" "I do," I replied without hesitation. A warm and happy feeling welled up in my heart, looking at the man in front of me who had always stood by my side through thick and thin. I knew that this time, I had made the right choice. After the celebration of the end of the zombie crisis, life gradually returned to normal. The city that had been devastated by the zombies began to be rebuilt. People worked together with great enthusiasm, hoping to restore their homeland to its former prosperity as soon as possible. Bennett and I also actively participated in the reconstruction work. He used his business acumen and connections to help the local government attract investment and promote economic development. I, on the other hand, used my experience and skills to participate in volunteer activities, taking care of the children and the elderly who had been affected by the disaster. Jasmine grew up happily in this warm environment. She became more confident and outgoing, making many friends at school. Every day when she came home, she would share with us the interesting things that happened at school, filling our home with laughter and joy. One day, Jasmine came back from school with a serious expression. "Mom, Dad," she said, using the name Dad for Bennett naturally now, "I want to do something to help the other children who are still suffering because of the disaster." Bennett and I looked at each other and smiled. We were very proud of our daughter's kindness and sense of responsibility. We discussed with her and decided to establish a charity foundation to help those children in need. With the joint efforts of the three of us and the support of many well-intentioned people, the charity foundation gradually grew and began to play an important role in the recovery and development of the city. We provided financial support, educational resources, and psychological counseling to the affected children, helping them regain their confidence and hope for the future. As time went by, our family became more and more harmonious. Bennett and I accompanied Jasmine to grow up, experiencing every bit of her growth and progress. We also cherished each other more and more, knowing that our relationship was not only a romantic love but also a deep emotional bond that had withstood the test of life and death. One evening, as we sat on the terrace enjoying the beautiful sunset, Bennett held my hand and said, "Delilah, looking back on everything we've been through, I feel that all the hardships were worth it because it brought us together and made us who we are today." I nodded, tears of happiness welling up in my eyes. "Yes, Bennett, we've overcome so many difficulties together, and now we have a wonderful family. I believe that no matter what challenges lie ahead, we will be able to face them together." At that moment, I knew that our story would continue, filled with love, warmth, and hope, and I was looking forward to spending every day of the future with my loved ones, creating more beautiful memories together. Story 2. My stepsister has been reading too many novels and tricked me into believing that she was a reborn individual, and even claimed that an apocalypse was imminent. I took her word for it and followed her to stock up on supplies. However, after we finished hoarding the supplies, she deliberately lured some homeless people who then robbed us of the goods and assaulted me to death, standing over my body. My stepsister mocked, "It's so easy to deceive a fool, and with such low intelligence, you deserve to die." That's when I realized that all her talk of apocalypse and rebirth were lies. It was all part of her perfectly planned murder. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the very day she had deceived me. "Sister, just believe me, the apocalypse is coming, and we'll be too late if we don't start stocking up now. Haven't you read the novels? There are so many reborn people these days. I almost thought I'd never see you again, but luckily, I came back as soon as I opened my eyes." Whitney was getting more excited as she spoke and even hugged me. I scoffed, "Since you're a reborn, then tell me, how did you die in your past life?" "Of course, it was while trying to save you." Whitney continued to play innocent, even starting to cry. "It was the high temperatures and the torrential rain. I was trying to save you, so I was dragged into the water by zombies and drowned." "Yeah, right, keep making things up." In a past life, Whitney used the same excuse to deceive me. She had been volunteering at a rescue center recently, frequently interacting with the homeless people in the city, before she tricked me into hoarding supplies. She purposefully stopped distributing food to the homeless for several days. She even lied to them, saying, "It was my sister who took the supplies originally meant for you. If you go find her now, you might still be able to get them back." So, when I was about to head home with a truck full of goods, I was unfortunately ambushed by several desperate homeless people. They came up to rob me, and my resistance led to a merciless killing. After I was brutally murdered on the street, the homeless people took the blame, and Whitney conveniently disappeared. What's worse, right after the funeral ended, she couldn't wait to inherit my estate, swiped my cards, and even tortured my cat. Only in death did I truly understand the seemingly innocent stepsister was actually a venomous snake. "Sister, we really need to stock up now. The apocalypse is only a few hours away." Whitney's face showed panic and concern. Outside, the dripping sound of light rain started, as if confirming my stepsister's lies. I was completely calm, all right, but if it's really like you say, and the apocalypse causes countless deaths and injuries, we should at least notify our followers, right? This brings us to our job. Being a volunteer was just for show, Whitney and I earned money through social media, mainly posting resonating sketches. In the videos, she always played the beautiful and kind protagonist, while I was the annoying antagonist. Whitney was too deep into her role, which is why she worked at the rescue center. Because our content was interesting, we had attracted over 10 million followers, making us quite famous online. At that moment, Whitney said, "No need to notify the followers, your safety is what's most important." Of course, she didn't want her lies exposed as it would severely damage her image, but I had already taken the initiative, using our influencer account to send out a message. "The apocalypse is imminent, please be prepared." Whitney grabbed the phone in disbelief. "Vicky, what are you doing?" She was so panicked she even forgot to call me sister. "Are you crazy, using our account to post such a message?" Clearly, she understood the dangers of spreading rumors. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by such a message? Didn't you say the apocalypse was coming? We have so many fans who like us, we can't just focus on saving ourselves." Whitney was at a loss for words because of my retort. "Forget it, sister. You better go gather some supplies quickly." She was checking the time, seemingly worried that the homeless person might not finish me off today. "Okay, I'll go get the supplies." I chose to cooperate with her. "All right, you go. I'll stay home and reinforce the doors and windows." The plan was half successful, a sly glint appearing in Whitney's eyes. I drove the pickup truck to buy supplies. After I left, the online community was already in uproar. Comment section: "Is the apocalypse really coming? Are Whitney and Vicky serious about this? The weather has been really erratic lately. It is indeed abnormal. Don't scare me. Should I start stockpiling goods now?" Minutes later, the topic of the apocalypse surged to the top of the trending searches. Millions were online asking if the sisters were serious, questioning whether they should start stockpiling goods. Whitney then posted a clarification video, fully made up and crying. "It's my fault. I accidentally made my sister angry. The rumor she spread in her anger was not true. Please don't take it seriously. I am sorry for wasting public resources. It's all my fault." As soon as these words were out, the whole internet began to castigate me. "That idiot Vicky, always playing disgusting roles. I thought it was just the script, but she's really like that." "Exactly. How can you joke about such things? What a complete fool. Whitney is still the best, beautiful and kind-hearted. Let's not hold it against her." What Whitney didn't know was that I had not only been reborn but also bonded with a system. At that moment, the system prompted, "Dear host, the apocalypse is 2 hours away. Please prepare quickly." My stepsister could never have imagined, with my resurrection, the lies she meticulously crafted for me became true. An hour before the apocalypse, I had already purchased everything. People were double-checking. Is Vicky really lying? The rain is getting heavier. I'm feeling a bit panicked. "I'm already at the supermarket," Whitney replied. "It's just a rumor, sweetie." My sister didn't mean it. "Please don't scold her." Fan: "Okay, then I'm going back." Really unlucky. How can Whitney have such a stupid sister? Marketers were the quickest to act. One video after another condemning me was released. In just 2 hours, I became a sinner vilified by the entire internet. Whitney took this opportunity to start a live broadcast, tearfully recounting our past. She used her victim card, spun lies, and once again attracted a large number of my detractors and bystanders. This deadweight sister, always dragging our Whitney down. Both are sisters. How can there be such a gap? Whitney should go solo soon. If she doesn't run, she'll be drained dry by her sister. Don't worry, people like Vicky will definitely face karma. Just wait and see. Watching the online comments coldly, I was unfazed at this moment. Surviving the apocalypse was what mattered most. System reminder: the apocalypse is 40 minutes away. Please find a safe place to take shelter immediately. Knowing the route of the homeless person in advance, after stocking up, I successfully avoided the areas where they were located. Instead of returning to the home I shared with Whitney, I opted to go to a villa I rented in the suburbs. Whitney was running low on food, and she didn't even have a single pill left. Without the supplies I had hoarded, she wouldn't have been able to survive the apocalypse. Let her fend for herself. Driving the pickup truck into the villa's garage and closing the shutter, I turned on my phone again and entered the live stream. On the screen, Whitney was still broadcasting live with an innocent look on her face, though now the backdrop was the interior of a car. She glanced down at the live chat and looked ahead somewhat distractedly. In my previous life, the last scene I witnessed before dying was Whitney leisurely driving to the crime scene in her pink Porsche, so now she was definitely rushing to witness my death scene. The live chat asked, "The rain is getting heavier. Are you sure it's okay?" Whitney waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry, There's no apocalypse, my sister just made it all up. She suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her phone flashed a message, and Whitney's face turned to one of shock almost simultaneously. Everyone's phones received an official red alert. Today's rainfall has broken historical records, with water temperatures reaching 80 degrees Celsius. The apocalypse warning has been activated. Please do not go outside and prepare accordingly. Regrettably, we must reiterate, the apocalypse has arrived. The live chat exploded with messages, everyone discussing the bizarre alerts. A few people still kept their wits about them. How could Vicky have sent those texts? She's just an internet celebrity. She couldn't possibly have that kind of power. Holy crap, look outside. The rain is so hot. I barely touched the water and almost got scalded. The western overpass and the eastern highway are both flooded. Everyone please stay inside. What the heck? Is this really the apocalypse? Why isn't Whitney talking? The live stream turned to a black screen. Whitney did not respond. A second later, the platform indicated that the live stream had been shut down. From the passenger seat came the distressed cries of a cat. The temperature had suddenly risen too much even for the cat to bear. I took the cat and some food, took the elevator up to the first floor of the villa, and the first thing I did was turn on the air conditioning outside. The rain poured down furiously, mixed with steaming mist due to the high temperature of the rainwater. The plants and trees were not spared. They were drenched by the scalding rain, wilting lifelessly. Raindrops splashed on the glass and instantly evaporated. A system alert warned, "Caution, the rainwater temperature is about to peak. Do not go outside and ensure cooling systems are turned on." I quietly held the cat and stepped back from the window, opening my phone. The online discussions about the apocalypse had exploded, mixed with some condemning comments directed at Whitney. Damn it, that damn Whitney fooled us. If it weren't for her, I would have stocked up earlier. What do I do? I went out because of Whitney. Now I'm stuck on the overpass, and the air conditioning is about to fail. Help, please. I trusted her enough to let my parents go out with peace of mind, but now I can't contact them anymore. My goodness, can someone please arrest Whitney and shoot her? What's more terrifying than this is a few new videos that have been circulating in the hospital. The first burn patients to be treated suddenly leaped up from the operating table, their skin turned purplish blue, and their bodies swelled up to several times their normal size, as if they had been soaked. They attacked doctors and patients indiscriminately in the hospital, tearing into anyone they could grab. Even more horrifying, those who were bitten started to mutate even without being drenched by the rain. They became zombies. In the community group chat, someone captured a video of an elderly neighbor mutating and attacking his own granddaughter. The security guard at our complex held his post tightly, but he couldn't withstand the heavy rainfall and collapsed into the water, his screams unceasing. Bang! Suddenly, a loud crash startled me. There was noise at the front door. Instinctively, I reached for the knife I had prepared at my back and moved forward, only to see a pale hand pressed against the door. A woman collapsed at the door, continuously banging on it. It was Whitney. "Sister," she called out to me with a hoarse voice. I frowned, not understanding why she was here. Whitney's originally pale skin was now a bright red, clearly overheated. Her lips were cracked, like a fish dying of thirst, her mouth opening and closing as she kept saying, "Sister, save me." Seeing her in such a desperate, dying state suddenly tugged at my heart. "Why are you here?" I approached and looked down at her through a glass door. She was clearly on the verge of shock but still managed to wear that insincere smile. "I was worried about you being in danger, so I came to see you. You were tracking me. The system had alerted me that Whitney was not infected, which is why I dared to make contact with her. There's a tracking app on your phone that I installed. Don't get me wrong, I was just too worried something might happen to you." I couldn't believe it. "Whitney, what is wrong with you?" Monitoring me, constantly driving behind me, she must have been eager to see me dead. I gritted my teeth. "First you deceive, then you slander me in front of your fans. You probably never dreamed that the apocalypse you talked about would come true." She then realized the gravity of the situation. "You saw my live stream, sister. It wasn't like that. I did it for you. I didn't mean to smear your name." She was a good actress. Tears coming on cue. "Make up whatever you want. I won't believe you anymore. Just fend for yourself," I said coldly as I turned to leave. I suddenly remembered a rainy day just like this one, yet under completely different circumstances. I was 11 and Whitney was 10. Being a late bloomer, I was always the shortest in class, often bullied. Once, a mean boy in class took my stationery and wouldn't give it back. Whitney, a year younger, heard about this and confronted him after school, ending up fighting the boy. By the time I arrived, they were still scuffling, rain washing the blood everywhere. It wasn't until a teacher arrived that the red-eyed Whitney finally let go. Ignoring her own bleeding head, she held up my mechanical pencil, stumbling and giggling. She ran towards me. "Big sister, here's your pen. I brought it back for you." I will forever remember the look in her eyes at that moment, pure, clean, and intensely warm. I don't understand how my sister, who used to be so kind to me, could have changed into what she is today. No longer dwelling on it, I started walking towards the inner room, but then A loud shout came from behind. Lucky, Lucky is the name of the cat. Turning around, I saw my American short hair somehow had gotten outside, once out of the air-conditioned room, its fur puffed up from the heat. There was just a narrow slit under the window. It must have squeezed out through there. The extreme weather had clearly confused the cat, arching its front legs. Lucky actually tried to jump into the rainwater. Don't jump. Instinctively, I wanted to open the door and go out to save the cat. But Whitney acted before I could, swiftly reaching out and grabbing Lucky. Fortunately, the eaves were wide enough to shelter her from the rain, but such a big move had exhausted all her energy. Powerless, she collapsed on the ground, looking so weak as if she might die the next second. Lucky shivered and kept burrowing into her. As I opened the door and stepped out, Whitney, trembling, managed a pale smile and handed the cat over to me. Look, big sister, Lucky is fine. A wave of hot steam hit us. As if it could cook a person. My heart softened again, holding the cat in one arm and lifting Whitney with the other. I brought her inside the house. I'm not sure if it was my imagination, but the moment we entered, it seemed like an ice blue butterfly flashed by and flew in with us. It flew into the living room, and I just blinked. An instant later, it was gone. In such extreme weather, how could a butterfly possibly survive? I asked Whitney. Did you see a blue butterfly? She shook her head, her gaze falling on a pack of bottled water on the table. No, I didn't see it. Whitney must have been terribly thirsty. She immediately lunged at the water, trying to tear it open. Don't move. I stepped forward to stop her. I only let you in temporarily. I didn't say you could touch these waters and food without my permission. You can't touch anything. Whitney withdrew her hand. All right, I'll listen to you, big sister. Her head was bowed, and I couldn't see her eyes. I couldn't tell if she was being cunning or sincere. I will tie up your hands and feet with a rope. Don't try anything sneaky. She looked sad. Big sister, do you really have to treat me this way? I truly realize my mistake. If you disagree, you can leave now. No, I agree. She extended her hands. Tie me up. Just as I was pulling out the rope, another incident occurred. Suddenly, a loud boom came from downstairs, accompanied by a deafening noise, and the whole building seemed to shake. Something happened in the basement. My heart tightened. I quickly finished tying up Whitney and prepared to go down to check. Soon, men's voices came through. Damn, it's cool now. The air conditioning is on. Feels great. Thank God we found a refrigerated truck, or we'd be dead. This voice, it sounded eerily familiar. Whitney froze too. Her body stiffened as she said, how could they come here? Who? The 3 homeless guys from the shelter. They had nowhere else to go before. So I gave them a key to stay here temporarily. I didn't expect them to show up today. Whitney, have you lost your mind? I grabbed her by the collar, wishing I could slap her hard. How dare you let others stay in the house I rented without my permission? Back when we were on good terms, I was the one who gave her the keys to this place. It wasn't intentional. I didn't expect them to come. She feigned tears, and I was utterly annoyed as I covered her mouth. Shut up. Do you want to draw everyone here? I tiptoed carefully to the basement entrance, straining my ears to confirm that it was those men. Damn, you've smashed the garage door. The air conditioning will probably stop working. Come and help fix the door. No one goes upstairs until it's done. It looked like they had rammed the garage door to get in. The 3 were notoriously vicious criminals, and I dreaded what they might do if they found me. Do they listen to you? I asked Whitney, if I'm not mistaken. They were supposed to wait for me on the road today, right? Her face changed, not expecting me to know about this. Sister, it's not my fault. Cut the crap. Do they listen to you or not? Answer me. Whitney shook her head, looking miserable. They were already criminals with records, uncontrollable. Now with the apocalypse here, they're bound to do whatever they want. They won't listen to me. That complicated things. Indeed, they had been pestering Whitney for food before, which she refused, and she even told them that I had taken the food and to wait for me on the road, but I had changed my route this time, and they must be looking to settle scores with Whitney. I couldn't let them succeed. I made up my mind immediately. Cooperate with me, or we both end up in a terrible state. Okay, Whitney nodded firmly. I untied her, and we hid in the bedroom, locking the door from the inside. We each held a concentrated pepper spray and an extended dagger. The voices grew louder. The men were coming up. If they try to break in, spray them with the pepper spray, and I'll stab them as hard as I can, aiming to cripple if not kill. Despite the anxiety churning inside, I laid out the plan with calm, and Whitney replied, understood. Outside, the men circled around and then focused on the bedroom door. Come here, this room seems to be locked from the inside. The other 2 gathered around. Who cares? Let's break it open. Bang. They charged at the door all at once. Cold sweat ran down my spine as I gripped the dagger tightly. If we got through this, I would consider teaming up with Whitney to survive this apocalypse together. With the men's forceful shouts, the door was already severely deformed. The next second, with a loud bang, the door was forcibly opened. In a swift motion, I raised my knife and shouted, spray. The anticipated perilous scene did not unfold. Instead, I heard Whitney say, sister, stop. They are also pitiful people. Me, wow, what's this? Such a long knife. Were you planning to peel an apple for me? I knew there was someone inside. Isn't that the social worker? Why didn't you make a sound inside? Planning to surprise me. So this is your sister. She looks really striking. They entered, grabbed me like handling a small chicken, and spewed various vulgar words. I looked at Whitney in disbelief. She still looked like a frightened little rabbit. I didn't mean to. I was just too scared. I wanted to say something, but those three didn't give me a chance. They snatched the knife from my hand and plunged it into my abdomen without hesitation. Strangely, as the blade pierced through my body, I felt no pain at all. Before my pulse stopped, I saw that blue butterfly again. Its icy blue wings trembled in the air, then slowly flew out of the window. I suddenly remembered, at the time of my death in my previous life, the same butterfly had appeared. Was it Whitney's doing? In my ears, the system's voice persisted. Warning. The host has unfortunately encountered a fatal incident, preparing to initiate the next rebirth, preparing for the last rebirth. Sister, let's go stock up. The apocalypse is about to start. As I opened my eyes, that familiar voice reached me again. Seeing Whitney's face so close, and thinking about being betrayed by her twice, my gaze turned fierce as I reached out and grabbed her neck. Her breathing became rapid and strained until her face turned purple, but I did not let go. At that moment, I truly wanted to kill her. Just then, a ringtone suddenly played, pulling me out of my boundless hatred, and I released my grip. The caller was Colin. He owns a convenience store near our home, where I frequently shop. After getting to know each other over time, he started pursuing me last month. Colin is a decent guy, and I don't dislike him. In my previous life, I was too busy dealing with Whitney to answer his call, but this time I successfully connected. As usual, he was eager to please. We just got a new batch of drinks in the store, including your favorite pear flavor. When will you come to try it? I glanced at the weather outside. The clouds were gathering, a sign of an impending change. In my previous life, I had warned Colin not to go out, and he complied, but later I saw news that the convenience store was overrun and the owner attacked by zombies. Forget the drinks for now. Close up shop immediately. I'll come over to find you. By the way, is your store well stocked? Although confused, Colin cooperated. It's well stocked. I just got new supplies yesterday. Then close the store now. Okay. He didn't ask why. Anything else I should do? There's a pharmacy next to your house. I'll send you a list later. Buy some medicine according to the list. All right. Without further ado, I hung up the phone. In this life, reborn without the aid of the system, I could only rely on myself. After Whitney was choked, it took her a long time to recover, and she still looked terrible. I decided not to bother with her and left the house once I was done packing. Just as I walked downstairs, a little girl ran into me head on and bumped into my legs. She was the granddaughter of a neighbor, named Cynthia. In my previous life, she was the girl in the homeowners group chat who got hurt by her grandfather when he turned violent. Cynthia was sensible and obedient, often bringing over delicious food made by her grandfather to share with us. I was quite fond of her. Vicky's sister, she greeted me excitedly. Do you think my new rain boots are pretty? They have little ducks on them, remembering her tragic death before. My feelings were mixed. It's about to rain. Hurry home, I scolded. Cynthia wasn't having any of it. I'm not going home. I want to wait for the rain. The white clouds in the sky gradually darkened. With limited time, I didn't want to deal with it anymore and lifted my foot to leave. Vicky's sister, she stopped me, waving a child's toy sand shovel. I heard that the rain will wash up little fish onto the shore. And since your birthday is coming up, I'll catch some goldfish to give you as a present. I took a deep breath and paused again. I turned around, went back, and without explanation, picked up the child and took her straight home. Ignoring her cries, I told Cynthia's grandfather, "Don't go outside. The apocalypse is coming." As I was about to leave the neighborhood, I saw that the girl had run out again. I should have known. Her grandfather doted on her too much and couldn't keep her in check. As for my warning, he certainly wouldn't take it seriously. After all, my foster father was known to be mentally ill. The kindly security guard saw me dazed at the entrance and whistled at me. "Why aren't you going home? The weather's turning bad." He was busy moving pots of flowers out of the security booth, muttering, "It's finally going to rain. Let's get these out for a drink." The security guard and I were acquainted. Several of these potted plants had been nearly killed under my care, but he had taken them over and tended them well, each plant thriving, if I remembered correctly. In my previous life, he also perished in extreme weather. This damned apocalypse. I checked my phone and saw that people in the city were all looking forward to the imminent rain. Finally, it's going to rain. Time to go fishing. A rainy day picnic sounds nice too. Friends are welcome to join us. The military training is ongoing at 3 universities in the city, and the instructors say that even rain can't dampen the students' enthusiasm. Without any hesitation, I changed my mind and headed back home, finding Whitney again. I told her, use our account to post a video, you go on camera and tell everyone not to go outside. When we first started doing social media, Whitney had established a persona of someone who could predict events. Even now, people in the comments joked that she was a lucky charm. Combined with her cute and likable demeanor, her words carried more convincing power. Not wanting to waste words, I picked up a knife. If you don't listen, I'll kill you. Myself, with the disaster coming, no one may even investigate. After the earlier choking incident, Whitney seemed to have learned her lesson and greeted me with a giggly smile. Let's talk nicely, don't play with knives, it's dangerous. She recorded the video in a spoken format, informing her fans that the apocalypse was imminent. This is not a rumor, I am willing to take full legal responsibility for what I have said. I remained skeptical until Whitney posted the video. How could she cooperate so smoothly? Sis, is it okay if I post it like this? I snorted coldly and ignored her. Colin called and said that he had handled things at the convenience store and asked when I would come over. I saw the video your sister posted. What should we do now? Colin had just graduated from university and started a business not long ago. He was still immature in handling things. Come over right away. He was worried. You must be careful. Don't worry, having already survived 2 apocalypses, if death was to mark the end again, I was resigned to it. After hanging up, I directed Whitney again. Follow me, you drive. She obediently agreed. Okay, since your driving is terrible anyway. I didn't bother to argue with her. Once on the road, we left the neighborhood without any hindrance. Since the video went out, Whitney's phone had been buzzing nonstop. As the topic of the approaching apocalypse surged onto the trending searches again, this time, people weren't mocking. Instead, they were seriously discussing the credibility of the situation. Her phone, which I had, kept receiving private messages popping up, one from someone claiming to be from an environmental institute. Hello, could you please talk more about the apocalypse? Our institute has also detected extreme weather recently, but unfortunately, we haven't found a breakthrough. Could you share more about what you know? Overjoyed, I shared all the details of what had happened in my previous lives with the person. Thank you, your information is very important. We need to study it urgently. With the involvement of professionals, I felt more reassured. Now, the biggest threat was my sister, Whitney. Fortunately, Whitney didn't cause any trouble and focused on driving. The car moved smoothly, and Lucky lay sleeping on my lap. It seemed like just another of our cozy trips, but in reality, my sisterly affection for Whitney had been exhausted by the deaths in the previous 2 lives. I couldn't understand how the sister previously labeled as heavily sister-obsessed by fans had become what she was today. Both of us were adopted by our foster father. I was adopted a few months after birth, while Whitney was picked up at the age of 6. Although our father was kind, he suffered from a mental illness. His condition was unusual. Besides constantly imagining a non-existent wife, he was no different from a normal person. He could even go out and run his metaphysics business, earning tuition fees for me and Whitney. He often said, "We have to wait for your mom to sit down before we can eat. You did well on the exam, show your report card to mom. Tomorrow is your mom's birthday. Dad will take you guys out to eat." Every time I heard these words, I would tremble with fear, because he had never been married. Whitney, on the other hand, would heartily laugh. Sure, let's celebrate mom's birthday, and I'll go pick a gift with sister tomorrow. No matter what happened, she always seemed fearless and carefree, because she showed enough emotional value. Our father also loved her a bit more, but Whitney liked me the best. Despite our father's favoritism, whatever she received, she would quietly give to me. The various snacks from our childhood, the beautiful dresses during our student days, the scholarships for top students, she gave them all to me. Even later, when we partnered in a social media venture and bought our first apartment together, she insisted on putting it under my name. Not just these, since I always played the antagonist to prevent online friends from being biased against me, she created an alternate account specifically to document our daily lives. Unfortunately, my lack of popularity was too great, and despite Whitney's efforts, there were still many people who disliked me. It's okay, as long as I always love my sister, that's enough. Once, she rested her head on my legs and played with my hair with her fingers, uttering such a lie. As we drove to the convenience store in the summer sun, the rain began to intensify. Don't move, I stopped Whitney from getting out of the car, first tying her hands and then unapologetically pushing her back, following her into the convenience store. As expected, Colin had put up a closed for business sign and had checked the electrical circuits, waiting in the store for me. I bought all the medicine you mentioned, and for safety, I also bought some self-defense tools. That's good, I pointed at Whitney, as long as we keep her under control. Surviving the apocalypse won't be a problem. Before this, I had Always had a good relationship with my sister. Colin found it strange to see Whitney's hands tied. What happened? It's a long story. Find some rope, and I'll tie her feet as well. The store's television was originally broadcasting routine news when it suddenly blacked out, then lit up again, now broadcasting an emergency alert about extreme weather approaching. Emergency broadcast, a weather warning. The rain temperature will rise sharply within an hour. Everyone is advised to seek shelter indoors immediately. The efforts of the researchers had paid off. They even hosted live streams, using AI-generated demonstration videos to educate online. Our city's rainwater has been contaminated by unknown harmful substances. When the rain temperature reaches its peak, about 80 degrees Celsius, it indicates severe contamination. If the skin is scalded at this time, it will unfortunately lead to infections and mutations. Worse yet, these mutations can spread through saliva, blood, and other means. Colin listened intently, both horrified by the apocalypse and turning back to look at Whitney. How did you know about this in advance? What? Whitney clearly didn't understand. Aren't you prophetic? That video alert was also posted by you. He didn't know. That was information I had only after being reborn twice. I was about to say something when suddenly, the convenience store's shutter door was knocked on. Who is it? Someone outside shouted. Police. Is anyone there? It was strange for the police to come at this time. Colin asked, should we open the door? I didn't rush to answer. The apocalyptic broadcast continued, the TV screen showing that the government had arranged for personnel to assist in evacuating people from outdoors, including a large number of police and firefighters. Open the door, I told Colin. The rain temperature hasn't reached its peak yet. There's no risk of infection. The door opened, and a middle-aged man in a police uniform stood at the entrance. His police badge was soaked by the rain. I'm a community officer, was on duty outside when I suddenly received the evacuation notice. It's too far to get back to the station now. Can I take shelter in your store? Colin hurriedly nodded. Of course. The officer thanked him and ducked inside. Following him were 2 men in handcuffs. These are criminals I just arrested. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on them. Colin handed the officer a bottle of mineral water. You must be tired. Have some water. First, during this, I observed the 2 criminals, who kept their heads down. I always felt there was something off about the situation. It wasn't until one of them slightly raised his head and our eyes met that I got chills. They were the homeless men responsible for my demise. What a coincidence. May I ask what these 2 have done? I asked nervously. These 2, they're always stealing things. Habitual offenders, the officer replied. His hat brim pulled low so I couldn't make out his face. Something was wrong, very wrong. The badge he had shown earlier was damp, and though I couldn't see his features clearly, his face shape didn't match the man in front of me. Attention, the rain temperature has reached its peak. Please do not stay outside and keep the cooling system on. In case of emergency, please call. Suddenly, the rain outside intensified, fogging up the glass. It was clearly entering the most dangerous phase. I walked over to Whitney and whispered, do you recognize that officer? Is he one of the homeless men you dealt with at the shelter? Whitney glanced at him and replied, I don't know. I'm not familiar with those people. I studied her, trying to read something in her eyes, but Whitney appeared unnaturally calm, even overly so. Excuse me, do you sell bandages? I accidentally scraped my leg while apprehending someone. The officer spoke again. Yes, let me find one for you. Colin, being naive, didn't notice the oddity of these people. As the officer followed Colin to look for bandages, I was thinking about how to subtly warn Colin, but then I saw the man casually grab a beer from the shelf and smash it over Colin's head, without giving him time to react. The man repeatedly struck him down. From the moment he struck to Colin lying on the floor, it all happened in less than 3 seconds. I cursed under my breath and quickly pulled out my pepper spray. But the 2 homeless men reacted swiftly. They threw off their fake handcuffs, rushed forward, and snatched the spray from my hand. Dirty bitch, you're quite cunning. I knew it was the social worker and her sister all along. Almost blew our cover. Pepper spray, you're quite scheming. Let's see if I don't deal with you properly later. The fake officer took off his uniform and approached, all 3 displaying a restless gleam in their eyes. She is cunning. Whitney added fuel to the fire. My sister is great at deceiving men. This convenience store owner is one of the victims. You have no idea. She's got lots of tricks up her sleeve. Her personal life is a mess, and she even has AIDS. I was being forced to retreat step by step, but stopped dead when I heard that AIDS. Damn it, just my luck. I touched her earlier, damn. Just when I thought I'd take advantage of the chaos and blow off some steam, I end up with such bad luck. Cursing, they grabbed Whitney. Social worker, is what you said true or are you fooling us? Cut the crap. If the sister is sick, we'll just switch to the younger one. They're sisters, no difference. What? Fear flashed across Whitney's face. You can't do this. You don't get to choose. It wasn't clear who made the first move, but they began dragging Whitney away. She headed toward the small compartment near the back door of the convenience store. Whitney screamed for help twice, and I instinctively wanted to rush forward to save my sister, but after only taking a few steps, I stopped. She had betrayed me twice. Why should I save her? As the group gradually moved away, Whitney realized I wasn't going to intervene and stopped shouting. The moment she was dragged into the small house, our eyes unintentionally met. I don't know if it was an illusion, but in such a suffocating scene, it seemed like I saw her smiling. The door to the small room was shut, cutting off the lewd conversations of the men. Colin fell into a coma. Fortunately, he wasn't bleeding much. I bandaged his head with gauze and covered him with a thin blanket. The TV continued to broadcast. The host announced, latest news, the extreme rainfall is expected to stop within 2 hours. Please hold on. This news reassured many viewers, but I couldn't feel happy. Turning my head, my gaze passed through the aisles and fell on that small door. Thinking about what Whitney might be enduring, my heart suddenly felt a sharp pain. If I hadn't been reborn twice, I would have risked my life to save my beloved sister, but now, dragging the unconscious Colin, I planned to take him upstairs to avoid the criminals. As I passed by the small room, I once again heard muffled thumping sounds. My steps grew heavier, and Whitney's face echoed in front of me, torn between the hatred for her betrayal and the sisterly affection that had lasted for years. Our father had been sent to a mental hospital before I graduated from high school, and in the years that followed, it was just the two of us sisters. A voice in my mind screamed, "No one can hurt my sister." Just as I resolved to find a way to rescue Whitney, suddenly, a cry of alarm came from the room. It was a man's scream of agony. My hand trembled in fright. Soon, more horrific screams followed. Voices of different men overlapped, mixed with words like bitch, kill you, and desperate. What was happening? What was Whitney doing? The terrifying noise didn't last long, just a few minutes, then all went silent. Whitney, I tried to push the door, but it wouldn't budge. I could faintly hear panting sounds, as if someone was leaning against the door, breathing rapidly and in pain. Whitney, how are you? After what felt like a long time, I finally heard her respond, sister. She was still alive. I silently breathed a sigh of relief. I asked, those men, I killed them all. Sister doesn't have to worry anymore. Whitney's voice was weak, as if she was forcing herself to speak. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Her voice came through the door, eerily serene. I've never felt as good as I do now. I could almost picture her, arms around her knees, face buried in her arms, smiling faintly. Before she was dragged into the small dark room, Whitney had also shown a smile. What exactly was she smiling about? A strong sense of unease enveloped me, and I began to meticulously recall all the details, telling the vagrants that I had AIDS. I thought she was slandering me at that time, but now, was she actually saying that deliberately to make them give up on harming me? Also, I vaguely remember when those 3 men had targeted her, saying she should take my place. Whitney's tense body seemed to relax. She looked as if a great weight had been lifted off her shoulders. But why soon? A terrifying thought crossed my mind. She must have been willing to be dragged in to save me. No, she had caused my death twice. How could she be willing to save me? Open the door, open it. I pounded on the door, wanting to ask her face to face. Don't, I look terrible right now. It would scare you. She started rambling. This rain will stop soon, and when it does, remember to call the police. You will be hailed as the hero who defeated 3 villains. What is she even talking about? Open the door, Whitney. I'll count to 3. This was a phrase I used to get her to listen to me. Whenever I said it, she would obey without fail. 3, 2. A sticky sensation came from beneath my feet. I looked down and saw blood. My voice trembled. 1. I won't listen to you this time. Sorry. Just think of it as me making you angry, said Whitney with a cough. Your birthday is coming soon. I'm giving you your gift early. I realized then, the sister I had always hated might be dying. What gift? It was only after asking that I realized I was crying. Looked down. Slowly, a blue butterfly crawled from beneath the door. It seemed to sense something and began to circle around me. Wasn't this the butterfly I had seen during my previous 2 resurrections? The ice blue wings shimmered under the light. Stunningly beautiful. However, the beauty was marred by the specks of Whitney's blood on the butterfly's wings, which were quite jarring. Is it beautiful? I suddenly felt that this butterfly looked familiar. Where did this come from? I extended my hand, and the butterfly landed on my fingertip. This time, it fluttered its wings but did not fly away. Don't you remember? It was when you were 16. When I was 16, I was momentarily confused. The most vivid memory from that year was my father's mental condition deteriorating severely, to the point of needing psychiatric hospitalization. That's right. It seemed to be because of a butterfly that his condition suddenly worsened. Before that incident, his condition had been stable. He spent his days lost in fantasies about having a wife and otherwise buried himself in his work. My father was a geomancer, and his workspace was filled with metaphysical tools that we were never allowed to touch. This was his inviolable rule. When I was 16, Whitney was 15. She had always been fascinated by those peculiar tools but never had the chance to explore them until that day she sneaked into the workspace while our father was out. In my memory, Whitney was always a sweet and obedient sister who never did anything outrageous, but that day, after sneaking into our father's workspace, she acted like a mischievous child. She rummaged through everything, turning the place upside down, even prying open our father's safe as though she was searching for something. When she saw what was inside the safe, she finally stopped, stunned. I noticed her unusual behavior and wanted to go over and see. But just then, our father opened the door. I had never seen him so angry. That day he picked up a rattan, fiercely lashing out at Whitney. My sister was beaten half to death. It was then that Grandma declared that our father had completely lost his mind, and not long after, tearfully had him committed to a psychiatric hospital. That night, Whitney and I huddled crying at the base of a wall, devastated by our father's explosive anger and the painful realization that we would be separated from him. For a long time looking back, although I hadn't fully seen what was in the safe, I caught a glimpse of an icy blue color. It was this butterfly. I also remember that the other half of the box was empty. It meant that there should have been 2 of such specimens. Is this the butterfly specimen from Dad? I asked. I never got to hear Whitney's answer. Sister, that was the last time she called me that, she said. Look, the rain has stopped. The official announcement came through. The extreme rainfall has ceased. Please do not go outside yet, and wait for further notices. The absurd apocalypse had ended. The butterfly gently fell, its body shattering as it disappeared. My sister vanished along with it. 3 hours later, the police arrived at the convenience store, only to find 3 bodies in a small room. Investigation revealed that the deceased were former residents of a relief center. As for Whitney, no trace of her was found at the scene. To put it accurately, she had disappeared from this world. Our shared social media account had become just mine. Photos of us together eerily showed only me. There was no record of her in the school's enrollment records, and even our family register at home no longer acknowledged her existence. Even the disaster warning that Whitney had broadcasted was now in my voice, showing my face in the video. After waking up, Summer looked at me with worried eyes. Vicky, you never had a sister. What's going on? No matter how much I tried to explain Whitney's existence, talking about her being a popular internet figure, describing how she was dragged into the room by a vagrant. It was all in vain. Everyone thought I was crazy. Vicky, I know killing 3 people is horrific, but you killed bad people. You don't need to invent a sister to escape the psychological burden. Summer tried to comfort me. I pushed his hand away, my expression cold. The psychiatrist thought I was experiencing post-traumatic stress, a subconscious self protection mechanism that made me create Whitney. Considering your father had similar symptoms, we think it might be hereditary, they said. The doctors didn't know I was adopted, but their words gave me a clue. Driving to the psychiatric hospital, I found my father, our daughter has come to see us. He cheerfully spoke to his non-existent wife upon seeing me. For the first time in my life, I acknowledged the existence of that woman in front of my father. What did die of? I asked. I guess she had gone through something like Whitney, departing the world in almost a supernatural way. Apart from always talking about his wife, my father was quite normal. He told me had chosen to die to save him. There was an accident, and I was supposed to be the one who died, but summoned the butterfly and traded her life for mine. So, Whitney died the same way, didn't she? I asked. Father sighed. You already know. Tears fell immediately from my eyes. I wasn't crazy. Whitney had really existed, and my father still remembered her. What exactly is going on? Let it go. I'll tell you everything. After all, soon no one will remember. My father told me that there were originally 2 such butterfly specimens, and they were ancestral treasures of our family. The passing butterfly signifies the departure of the living and the arrival of the dead. Once awakened by human blood, it can recognize its master and obey commands to save those who need to be saved. The cost is the life of the master, a life for a life. I was astonished. That's absurd, my father replied. There are far more absurd things than this. Years ago, when your mother and I went to town to buy formula for you, we were involved in a car accident on the way back. In that accident, I was supposed to die, but your mother, foreseeing everything, used her blood to awaken a passing butterfly. The butterfly created an illusion that changed everything. In the illusion, the driver thought there was an oncoming vehicle on the right, so he swerved to the left. In reality, the oncoming vehicle was actually on the left. Everyone thought the driver had gone mad to crash the car intentionally, but fortunately, everyone in the car only suffered minor injuries. From then on, your mother disappeared from this world. It was the same with Whitney. To save you, she let the butterfly create the illusion of your previous 2 rebirths, where you were killed by your sister. No wonder I felt no pain when I was stabbed. It wasn't real, my father continued. The passing butterfly is a male and an ancestral treasure of our family. Only the men in our family can remain unaffected and fully aware from start to finish. Your grandfather died early, so I am the only one left who remembers your mother. So, I am indeed your biological daughter. He nodded. I met Whitney the 2nd year after your mother, died. I've led a failed life, but my geomancy skills are genuine. When I saw her abandoned at the hospital entrance, I could tell she had the same prophetic ability as your mother. Fearing that others in the field would discover her and exploit her abilities for boundless profit, I took her in and guarded the secret closely. Whitney was 6 years old when I brought her home, abandoned because of the birth of her third brother. I remember when she arrived at our home, I was 7 years old. At an age of caprice, seeing a little girl half a head shorter than me, I was quite resentful. Where did this dirty kid come from? Why did my dad pick you up? Despite her tragic background, Whitney was not timid at all. She looked up at me with a grin. Sister, I can predict the future. I can tell that you will become the most beautiful woman in the world, who wouldn't be swayed by sweet words. From then on, I accepted her as my sister. We talked about everything, shared the same bed, attended the same school. I kept my long black hair, and she had a neat short haircut. We both believed that we were the most important people in each other's lives. When I first decided to become a social media influencer, Whitney even suggested, how about creating a character who can predict the future? All the videos were planned by her, and all the prophecies she made in the sketches came true, leading us to stardom. I always thought this good fortune was a blessing from heaven, not realizing it was fate playing tricks. From the first moment she saw you, she already knew everything. My father's words stunned me again. She knew that in this year's natural disaster, you would die trying to save her. Without the butterfly's illusion, you would have rushed into the convenience store to save Whitney, only to be killed by the knives of vagrants, while Whitney would have miraculously survived. Over the years, she has asked me more than once if there was any way to keep you alive. I know that fate is inescapable. No matter how we try to avoid risks, you will ultimately meet a violent end, he said. It wasn't until Whitney was 14 that she discovered the last morning butterfly. I had planned to awaken it myself, to trade my life for yours. Unexpectedly, she acted first and claimed the butterfly as her own. Her father's voice was old and deep, he told me. That day, she said to the butterfly, I hope my sister will hate me enough to stop trying to save me. As I drove away from the psychiatric hospital, the city had returned to normal. The car radio reported that the occurrence of scalding rain was due to the release of nuclear wastewater, which caused radioactive materials to rise into the atmosphere, triggering a series of catastrophic reactions. Fortunately, with the joint efforts of various parties, the number of casualties in this disaster is zero. Trees were replanted, the neighbor's little girl wore her rain boots again, and the security guard moved undamaged flowers out to bask in the sun. It was as if nothing had been affected in this apocalypse. My sister was the only one forgotten by the world in the original timeline. Before it had even started raining, 3 homeless men were just arrested for theft. The sudden apocalypse alert overwhelmed the police, and the criminals took the opportunity to escape into a convenience store. If it weren't for the 2 rebirths in the illusion, I would indeed have thrown myself at them when they dragged Whitney away, because she was my dearest sister. Sister, suddenly, a familiar voice came from the car speakers, and I was momentarily dazed, surprised to hear my voice again. It turned out to be a voice message she had recorded in advance. Just a reminder, this is the 3rd minute since you left home, in what you perceive as your 3rd rebirth. Sister, I must have been quite hateable in the illusion, to the point where the first thing you do upon waking up is to fiercely choke me. Honestly, I was very upset just now. After all, I had fantasized about not getting married and living with you for a lifetime. I know you want everyone to safely survive the apocalypse, so you'll come back for me soon. Time is limited, so I'll keep it short. Vicky, I must tell you seriously, saving you was entirely my own choice. It's been 18 years, and I can't remember the exact moment I decided to save your life at all costs. So sister, don't feel guilty, and don't cry. Meeting you and father was the luckiest thing in my life. I can't say more. Your car is already downstairs. The person saved by the morning butterfly retains their memory for an extra day, so I arranged for you to hear this recording at the right time. Don't ask how I did it. I can see the future. For the last time, just this once, let me count to 3, 3, 2, 1. Vicky, forget about me. Her last words were spoken softly, as if whispering in my ear. As the recording ended, I felt as if the memories of Whitney were gradually fading from my mind. No, I don't want to forget. I parked the car by the roadside, trembling as I scribbled everything down, but the words I wrote were gradually blurring until the black marks completely disappeared from the paper. I couldn't fight fate. I don't know how much time passed, as if waking from a chaotic dream. I didn't even know why I was here. A passerby stopped their car in front of me. Isn't that the famous Vicky? Why are you crying? I touched the tears on my face, also feeling puzzled. I don't know. I just feel a heartache, as if I had lost something very, very important. At 16, Vicky witnessed her father's rage Simply because her sister had touched his belongings, Whitney was lashed with a whip until she was covered in bloodstains. Unknown to Vicky, Whitney had not only discovered the morning butterfly but had also pricked her fingertip and dripped her own blood onto it, claiming the butterfly before their father could. Vicky couldn't help but hit her sister in her attempts to protect her younger sister. Vicky herself had not escaped being whipped with rods after the tumult of that night had passed. The two of them crouched under the moonlight, weeping. Unbeknownst to Vicky, Whitney, who had been hunched over with shuddering shoulders that entire day, was not crying but laughing. She had finally found a way to change her sister's fate. The moonlight stretched their shadows long, and in the house just over the wall, their father lay on a bamboo mat, silently shedding tears for his adopted daughter. As the wind began to rise, Vicky wiped her tears, stood up, and reached out her hand to Whitney. "Let's go home, epilogue 2 A week after the apocalypse had passed, the mental hospital called to say my father's condition had worsened. In addition to coma, he's now hallucinating about an adopted daughter named Whitney. We might need to consider a different treatment plan." Whitney, I stroked Lucky's tail, puzzled by this unfamiliar name, only feeling a headache coming on. "All right. Please do what you must." After hanging up, I repeated the name to myself. Whitney. Suddenly, a drop of water fell on Lucky, and I found myself crying again. How strange, why did I suddenly feel so sad?